He was an Einstein.
Good afternoon. We're going to reconvene now in open session. I'd like to start with commissioners' reports and comments. Vice President Baker.
Just one thing. I stopped down at Mr. Speddin's office last week, and he wasn't in, so I ran into him here at lunchtime today over at the canal event, and I did ask him if he had reached out to Mr. Jefferson to try to come up with a resolution on the issues that they were having. And he had told me that he had not reached out to Joe. So that was kind of disappointing. I thought he told us that he was going to reach out to Joe and try to come to an agreement with Mr. Jefferson concerning the cycling event here in Washington County. So that's all I wanted to comment on.
Thank you, Terry. Commissioner Kiefer.
Yes, a few items. I'd just like to share that I attended my first meeting of the Tri-County Council, I believe 2 weeks ago. We haven't met for 2 weeks, so that was held in Cumberland. And Wendy Peters, the governor's special secretary for smart growth, I believe is her title, gave a brief presentation. I was also able to attend 2 opening day ceremonies for Little Leagues in Washington County. One, the Hancock Little League, and the other was the Antietam Youth Athletic League, which is a girls softball league down in Keedysville. And at that particular opening day, I got to throw out the 3rd pitch, not the 1st pitch, after Councilwoman's Gina Ellis and Judy Kearns, I believe, throw out the first 2 pitches, and then I was invited to throw out the 3rd one. I also attended the spring open house for the Rural Heritage Museum, which I've been there a couple times, and you always see something new when you visit. It's a beautiful asset that we have here in Washington County. I hope more people get to visit. I'm a car aficionado, and they have a couple popes and a Dagmar or 2 that was built right here in Hagerstown. And they have a new addition this recently that they unveiled, a Durant, which I was amazed at all of the history that our volunteers know about those cars. So that was really interesting. Maybe we can take a tour there one day ourselves. And also, last week, the Historical Advisory Committee meeting was held. Krista Hart, our county clerk, attended with me. We have a new chair of the Historical Advisory Committee, and with Krista being in her position new for the first time, as we're planning our John Fry Historic Preservation Awards that are on May 21st. I know that'll be part of our commissioner agenda that day, so we don't have to worry about planning for that, but Krista and our PR and marketing department's doing a good job for us to prepare for those awards that we'll be giving out that day. And that's always a fun event. I enjoy that day. And so that planning is well underway. So that's all.
Commissioner Wagner.
Good afternoon. I'm used to saying good morning in these meetings. Y'all don't think we do anything. You just listen to all the places Wayne Kiefer was at. Jeff hadn't even spoken yet, so he's going to have as many. I'd just like to mention and keep our thoughts and prayers for the Riders, Dave Ryder and his family. I think everybody knows he passed away Saturday afternoon. With that being said, Dave was a huge asset for our community and our airport. He was a friend of mine. I actually graduated with him. He's the type of guy you went to and asked him for anything, he'd do it. I know he was general contractor for Brooks House. And I could talk forever of things he's done for our community. So he was just a wonderful man, and he has a wonderful family. His son, he's been grooming his son, so I'm sure his Ben Ryder will be filling in as hard as that may be. But anyway, I wanted to say that. Black Rock Golf Course had their 30th anniversary Monday. There was a couple of us attended. I thought it was a wonderful event. We had a sold-out tournament to open that up. Some great leadership, past and present. We got some new people in place, and I'm sure there's more to come on that. But the staff was great. The whole staff was out there. It was windy, a little chilly. The golfers were great. They stuck it out, and it was a very well-run event and well attended by staff. Delegates were there, commissioners were there, and so I wanted to commend them on putting on such a nice function. That's all I have.
Court.
First, I'd just like to put my thoughts and prayers out to everybody for Keith Grinnell. He was the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and he also very big community leader here in Washington County. He suffered a stroke on April 1st. They are doing great care, and just recently, last Saturday, he was brought back from Pittsburgh back to Washington County Emeritus Medical Center, and he's doing great out there. So we can just think of him in our thoughts and prayers. On a positive side, went to Mamma Mia by Barbara Ingram this weekend. That was fantabulous. I mean, there needs to be a better word. Those students did an amazing job, and I recommend every year go attend one of their plays. They're just amazing. Of course, I'm here, so I survived the Over the Edge rappelling from the Boys and Girls Club. That was a great event, and I can't wait for them to do that again next year. Maybe we'll get Rob to do it next year, throw him under the bus. There was a lot of fun things. A lot of the businesses in Washington County, the employees would pay for their boss to go over the edge. So it was pretty funny, but great event. I was also got to throw a first pitch for the Washington County Girls Softball League on that same day for the as the Girls and Boys Club Over the Edges. The first time I ever threw the first pitch. It was a lot of fun. So
You took a mulligan, moved up about 20 feet, didn't you?
I took a step back from you.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, thanks to all the commissioners for being so active and involved and going out amongst the community. I know that people really, really enjoy that. One of the special things I did over the weekend, I was invited to the spaghetti dinner for the Special Olympic athletes. And if you recall, we had a young man in here from Pinesburg, Mr. Speaker, who won 2 or 3 medals, Olympic medals over in Australia, I believe it was. And he recognized me right away, but it was a warm reception and nice to be with those folks helping their Special Olympics cause. That'll end my report today as well. Any reports from county staff? Please come forward.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I wanted to let you know that we hired a gentleman for the MEO2 position at Southern Division of Highways. This position is a grade 7 position, step 1, $32,219, and we hired Mr. Mike McGill for that position. The next 2 positions I do need a vote on. The first one is Deputy Director of Water Quality. It's in a Division of Environmental Management. In Water Quality, it's a grade 17, step 1, $69,534. It's a full-time position and it was budgeted. We did advertise both internally and externally. We had 15 applications. We interviewed 2 people, and the Department of Water Quality interview panel consisted of Dan DeVito, Director of Environmental Management, Mark Bradshaw, Deputy Director of Engineering, and Deborah Kondo, Deputy Director of Human Resources. The panel selected Jeremy Mose for the position. Jeremy currently works for the town of Boonesboro as a wastewater operator with 10+ years of experience. He holds all the necessary licenses required as a deputy director. In addition, he holds an associate's degree at HCC in alternative energy and a BS degree from the University of Maryland University College in Management. He is currently enrolled in a graduate program at UMBC studying management. He is an Army veteran who performed water treatment as well as numerous projects in diverse subject matter while in the service. His application states that his experience over the last 20 years has prepared him to take advantage of the opportunity of our deputy director position, and it's with excitement and enthusiasm that we ask you to approve him.
Commissioners,
I motion to approve that hiring.
is there a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more for you today. And this is the Deputy Director of Public Works and Highways, Division of Public Works, and it is a grade 18. It's a step 8 at $95,514. The interview panel consisted of Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works, John Panisi, Deputy Director of Parks, and Rob Slocum, County Administrator. The panel selected Zane Rao for the position. Zane has already proven his ability to manage the department's operation in the director's absence. He has the respect and support of the employees and several who have approached Andrew unsolicited in support of him. He has willingness to work with others and to solve problems and has been a mentor within the department.
Commissioners, thoughts, comments? Hearing none, how about a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
I have a first, is there a second?
Second.
Terry Baker, second. All in favor, say aye.
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 I'd just like to point out that Mr. Zane Rao is here with us today up in the back, so if you wanted to say anything to him.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
No snowstorm this evening, Zane, so. Oh, I said there'll be no snowstorm this evening, so enjoy your time while it lasts.
Tornadoes and hurricanes, that's all you have to worry about.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Yeah, just real quick.
We already hired you. What are you going to say now?
Well, I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to lead the highway department and continue working with the men and women to provide the best service we can to citizens of Washington County. So,
Thank you.
Appreciate
Best of
that.
Thank you.
luck to you, sir. Any more staff reports, please come forward.
Good afternoon. Dan DeVito, Director of Environmental Management. Two quick things. First of all, earlier this afternoon, I had the pleasure of attending a ceremony in which, through First Energy and the Chamber of Commerce, Paul Fry, we had a little ceremony at our office where the public school representatives and the representatives from DLLR and the apprenticeship program awarded us and presented us with a $1,000 check that goes to help offset the costs of our training for the junior apprentices. So we have junior apprentices that work for us through the school systems, and the cost for those junior apprentices are offset by the donations of First Energy. So, I mean, that was a very nice program, and we appreciate the opportunity to participate in that, and it's part of that workforce development that's so important to the county. And then finally, quickly, I just wanted to let you know this morning, I had the opportunity to ask a question: how much have we actually swept up with our street sweeper? You know that our street sweeper we took possession of that street sweeper at the Mummers Parade the same day. So that's how long we've had that street sweeper. As of this morning, that street sweeper has swept up 236,000 pounds of debris off of the streets in Washington County. And we're well on our way to exceed the goal and the guys are doing a great job.
Very good.
Which reminds me something President Klein said about MML and MACO, first things in economic development. Clean.
Clean, keep your town or county clean. First thing your visitors see.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Dan.
It shows pride in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other staff reports? You have an appointment.
Good
You have an
afternoon.
appointment too, don't you?
Afternoon.
Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management. Here I have a brief presentation. It's for informational purposes only to announce and make you aware of two recent awards from the General Fund Contingency Program. The first is for Hagerstown Neighborhood Development Partnership, otherwise known as the Hagerstown Home Store. They were awarded $3,000 to assist with unanticipated rental expense due to the sale of the building that they currently reside in by the city of Hagerstown. Previously, they had had in-kind donation for that office space, so the rental the rent expense was unexpected and unbudgeted. The city of Hagerstown is also contributing towards these efforts. They are giving $500 a month. That would be a total of $6,000. That would match with our $3,000 to allow the organization to have a year to seek other sources for ongoing support for those costs. In addition, there's another award I want to announce that was $2,000 to the Sharpsburg Volunteer Fire and Rescue Company. That was due to water damage that they had recently. The repairs total about $7,800, but they have some budgeted funds that they're going to use and some funds that they have raised to help pay the balance of that. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other staff reports?
I have a couple things, President Klein. First is I met with the interim city administrator and the forthcoming city administrators, Mr. Spiker and Mr. Nice Warner, last Thursday. Had a very nice conversation about city-county relationship. The HCC Foundation dinner on Friday night to honor Mr. Ben Jones was very, very well done, and obviously an asset to the community with both his art and what he's brought in his words. The Tolson Chapel visited last Monday, and that is an extraordinary piece of history that I was largely unaware of until last Monday in the town of Sharpsburg. So there has been some discussion of teaming up with the Antietam Battlefield, which is obviously a National Park Service park, but what a treasure down there to have for Sharpsburg, right next to the Antietam Battlefield. Black Rock Golf Course, the lunch, we will look to inviting those commissioners that had been involved and leaders to get the Black Rock Golf Course started over 30 years ago and supported it back then, invite them to a lunch. Vice President Baker had mentioned that. I think that would be an excellent thing to do. I think Andrew is here, and we will look forward to doing some type of event like that.
Yeah, there's some talk about having a tournament honoring Mr. Winnington on his retirement.
That would be an excellent combination.
Coordinate those two together.
That would be fantastic. So we'll look into doing that. Thank you. And the CNO Canal, it was on your agenda informally, but the CNO Canal headquarter meeting today, NPS State, a wonderful representation of the commissioners being there, the state as well as the town, regarding the CNO headquarters locating. Very exciting imagery coming forward. And I did want to ask Susan, while you're here, I think we also had the Velo Club was approved for funding as well. Okay. And Mr. Jefferson is here, and I'd like to commend Mr. Jefferson on filling out the request form for that, which I think he has done dutifully for a number of years. So that award was something to the amount of $1,995, going by memory. So thank you. Thank you, sir.
I have a board appointment. The Emergency Services Advisory Council would like a vote for an exception to the two-term requirement, which is in policy PR 22, as well as to reappoint Robert Dwayne Lunsford to serve a third three-year term as Commissioner Randall Wagner's representative from April 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2022. Mr. Lunsford, attendance and participation in the Emergency Services Advisory Council has been excellent, and he has proven to be a positive member of the committee.
Okay. Commissioners?
I motion to approve Mr. Lunsford's.
Do we have to make the motion first to grant the waiver?
You could do it both in one. Okay, is that all right?
I'll make a motion to grant the waiver.
I'll second.
All right, first and second to grant the waiver. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion to approve Mr. Lunsford is requested.
I motion to approve Mr. Lunsford as requested.
Okay, is there
Second.
Second, hearing first and second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any other staff comments? This week of April 14th through the 20th is National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. I think we have some people here representing that. For Mr. Brown?
I thought his name was great.
Here, please join me. Telecommunications Week, tell me about that.
It's done nationally. It's to honor and recognize the telecommunicators, the 911 dispatchers who are always there 24/7, 365 days a year.
Okay, thank you for that information. On behalf of the whole Board of County Commissioners, we'd like to present this proclamation for National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, April 14th through the 20th, 2019. Whereas each day, thousands of citizens dial 911 for help in emergencies ranging from burglaries, house fires, automobile accidents to heart attacks, violent crimes, and missing children. And whereas the men and women who answer these calls for help work quickly, under pressure, to gather the essential information and then dispatch the appropriate response. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are more than a calm and reassuring voice on the other end of the phone, they are knowledgeable and skilled individuals who work closely with police, fire, and medical personnel. And whereas, because emergencies occur around the clock, the community can rely on the vigilance and the preparedness of these individuals 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, do hereby recognize April 14th through the 20th, 2019 to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week and honor the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our county and citizens safe. Thank you very much for representing us today. Commissioners, may we have a group picture with Mr. Brown?
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you again to our 911 telecommunicators. They often go unrecognized, but they're there on the other end of that phone, probably on one of the worst days of your life. Now we'd like to proceed forward with citizens' participation. Is there anyone in the front row who would like to speak? Please come forward, name and address, please.
Joseph Jefferson, 1321 Glenwood Avenue, Hagerstown, Maryland. On October the 30th of 2018, I came before the previous administration to voice my concerns regarding what I believe to be unprofessional, unethical, and exclusionary treatment that I had been receiving by the leadership of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I brought my concerns before that administration after several failed attempts by myself, the leadership of USA Cycling, and even our current county administrator to meet with the leadership of the Convention and Visitors Bureau to discuss my concerns. I also brought my concerns to this administration, the previous administration I should say, as it is the county who approves larger amounts of funding requests through HRTF and other forms of logistical support for events like the National Cycling Championships. It was also on October the 30th of 2018 that the leadership from the CVB came before that previous administration to seek an increase in financial support for the 2019 championships. During that session, on October the 30th, the previous administration reached a consensus that a resolution between the CVB and myself needed to be in place prior to the CVB receiving any money. In fact, it was the leadership from the Convention and Visitors Bureau whom agreed that a resolution was the right thing to do for the county and myself. On March 26th of this year, this current administration voted 4-1 in approval of a previously mentioned funding request, despite the fact that there still had not been a resolution reached at that time. Thus, in doing so, it was this current administration whom acted in a manner that contradicted itself, as both Commissioner Wagner and Commissioner Meinelschmidt, I apologize if I mispronounced your name, are on record as stating that we are not willing to rescind the decisions reached by previous administrations. In quoting Commissioner Wagner, "What's done is done, and it would set a bad precedent." Those statements were made when addressing the issue of sewer bill forgiveness during a session that took place on January 29th of 2019. This administration elected to not ask the leadership of the Convention and Visitors Bureau any questions as to ascertain why it has taken such a long time to reach an agreement, despite the fact that some members of this current administration were privy to the facts regarding a confidential meeting and tentative agreement that took place on November the 13th of 2018. I'm a bit perplexed as to how an informed member of this administration would not simply ask the question as simple as to why it has taken so long. I am mystified as to why no one from this administration took the opportunity to challenge the leadership of the CVB when they characterized me and my efforts as merely being a part of a larger team with some expertise, especially when knowing that members before me now knew better on that day that Mr. Spedden made that statement. This document here is the bid proposal package for the 2018 and 2019 national championships. The first name listed in this document is that of Joseph Jefferson, the chairman of the local organizing committee. That would be me. The first letter sent to USA Cycling's chairman and president of national events is from Joseph Jefferson, dated August 23rd of 2016. The second letter to USA Cycling in this bid proposal package is from Joseph Jefferson. There are 10 courses proposed in this bid proposal package that sought consideration for the national championships. Those are courses that I designed to get that event to Washington County. My work started in March of 2016 and was voluntary up until late October of 2017. With that being said, I was far more than merely a part of a team, larger team, with some expertise. And people knew that on this administration because they've seen letters that indicate differently. So I'm here to question why this current administration decided to restrict my ability to speak on the record, while there are numerous videos that show the many times in which members of the gallery have been permitted to speak on matters in which they might be considered experts. And finally, I am baffled as to why no one from this administration asked Mr. Spedden why he was in need of so much money when he sat before this administration and boasted about the fact that their sponsorship dollars had doubled that of which they were last year at that same time. I have reached out to several members of this current administration, and their private responses have been in my favor. In fact, one commissioner who voted in approval of this funding request stated, "I wish I would have known all of this before the meeting on March 26, and it looks like you were getting screwed." To that end, I simply state, so now you know, what are you going to do to fix the error that this administration has made? In closing, I wish to state that I am alarmed by this administration's actions that can best be described as capricious, inconsistent, and accommodating towards what it may perceive as an ally. Our region can ill afford inconsistency from its elected officials. We have enough of that at the national level. The optics associated with how I have been treated are alarming, and those optics are magnified by the actions of this current administration. I ask that you contact the leadership of the CVB, request their presence, and inquire about their actions that can be described best as unethical, unprofessional, and exclusionary. Simply put, make this right.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson, for your words. Continuing with citizens' participation, is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to participate? Seeing none, let's continue with the establishment of the Andrew Michael Forest Mitigation Bank. Sir, please join us.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Application has been made to establish the county's second forest mitigation bank near Searfoss. Forest mitigation banks are established to provide offsite mitigation options for developers who have mitigation requirements under the county's forest conservation ordinance. In order to get to the forest banking option, they must prove that other preferred options in the Article 10 of the Washington County Forest Conservation Ordinance are not feasible. And then if that justification is provided, credits are purchased from the property owner by the developer to satisfy their mitigation requirements for the forest clearing that they've done for their development. That acreage is then deducted from the overall total of the bank, and we receive receipt of that transaction, which is a private transaction between the two parties. Article 20 of the Washington County Forest Conservation Ordinance describes the criteria that we look at for judging whether a property is potentially useful to set aside for forest banking purposes. That criteria includes establishing or enhancing forested buffers adjacent to streams, critical habitat or differing adjacent land uses, establishing forested wildlife corridors, forested 100-year floodplains on steep slopes, or enlarging contiguous forest areas. There are two different types of forest mitigation banks that can be established: an afforestation or planting bank and a retention bank. The applicant in this case has proposed a 9.62 acre retention bank, so it would be on existing forest. Looking at the individual characteristics of this particular site that has been proposed for setting aside for banking purposes, this site does provide a forested buffer for an intermittent stream and a wetland listed on the National Wetlands Inventory. It is located immediately adjacent to a perennial stream and floodplain as a part of Tom's Run within that vicinity. Also immediately adjacent to this proposed forest bank is a 153-acre Maryland Environmental Trust conservation easement, and that particular conservation easement is really the only permanent protection in an area along that waterway, which actually does still hold a very large block of contiguous forest. So this forest bank plus that existing conservation easement would set aside some long-term protection for the existing forest in that area. The Washington County Planning Commission did recommend unanimously for approval at their March 4th meeting. We've been working with County Attorney's Office to draw up the legal documents in anticipation of your potential approval of this forest mitigation bank. If it is recommended for approval, the bank would then be available for debiting, and there is actually a couple of county projects in review that are already looking to deduct from this bank if it is legally established. So we would ask for your approval of this forest mitigation bank, but I'm here to answer any questions if you have any prior to that.
There's nothing out of the normal here. This is pretty standard, correct?
Yeah, I mean, again, just to be clear, this is only the second forest mitigation bank that's been established. Our banking program is relatively recent. The existing one that we have is kind of near the Keedysville area, Swinging Bridge Road, but everything, you know, from that forest mitigation bank that we established previously to this one is the same.
Maybe just for my clarification, if I was the developer and I wanted to, and I was required to have forest retention, I could go to Hancock, buy 100 acres and make that forest retention, so it's sort of the same, right?
Yeah, this forest banking can be used, you know, sort of proactively and for people just looking for that option. So if somebody looking to do offsite retention can do that without needing to deduct land from a forest mitigation bank. This provides kind of a financial incentive both for the property owner and sort of a prepared list, a prepared location where somebody can go to just deduct from that, so they don't have to go find the easement on their own. Is sort of the convenience factor that this is available for.
Commissioners, any other questions?
You did say this property was in Mulligansville?
Near Searfoss, very close to the Searfoss roundabout.
And it's owned by Andrew, Fred, and Susan, all three?
Yeah, I think it's 90% ownership of Andrew Michael and then a small ownership stake by Fred and Susan Frederick.
Fred's a big C&O Canal type guy. I'm surprised he owns land out there in the Searfoss area.
I think he's in the audience, so you can inquire about that.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I motion to be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, a motion to approve, say aye. Aye. 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, soil erosion and settlement control. Folks, good afternoon. Welcome.
My name's Elmer Weibly. I'm the manager of the Washington County Soil Conservation District, and here with me today is Dee Price. She's our director of our urban program. Thanks for considering our request for a fee increase for the services we provide to the development community. I provided a memorandum to you that explains why we're asking for a fee increase. I just wanted to briefly introduce all of that, and I'll go through some of the materials that I provided you, but not all of them. Our process each year is to look at our budget and what our needs are in that, and part of our budget is what we collect in fees. We're authorized under Maryland statutes to collect fees for these services. So as we looked at our budget and where we were at with the services we provided this year, as well, we're in a process of developing a strategic plan for the next 5 years to see where we're going to be able to strengthen our operation to meet the regulatory challenges that we have with the watershed implementation plan for all of our programs, but as well what we need to do in the urban community for development projects, whether they be housing projects or important economic development projects. So we identified two positions that are essential to what we do. One is an engineering technician, which is why we're seeking the fee increase to take a current position that's part-time and funded by the county to a full-time position to give us more staff to complete the reviews that are needed. The other position we identified was for an engineer, particularly to help us with approval of stormwater management ponds. We're putting that position on hold. We're working with Rob and other county staff to come up with alternatives to fill that need so we can maybe eliminate some duplication of effort when it comes to pond approvals. That process is ongoing. So our fee proposal will support a budget that will enable us to make the part-time position full-time and provide benefits. We feel that that's essential. So in your packet, there's an analysis of our workload that goes through, for a number of years, from fiscal year 2010 through 2018, all of the type of reviews that you see we do, from pond as-builts through standard plans, sensitive area reviews, site plans. We essentially review all of the same type of projects that county staff reviews. We have a narrow focus on environmental issues. But if you look at the totals, when you look at how much we do with that, 558 reviews, and that's just the touch that I say that we have a submission. It doesn't actually capture the amount of work and interaction that goes on there. And then we also have a program of doing field work to go out and make sure things are being implemented properly, and conducting pre-construction meetings in cooperation with county staff and make sure everybody understands what's expected of them as far as erosion and sediment control goes on a development project. So when you add those up, there's 744 touches, and it's, and Dee would agree with me, each submission is more than just, we get a set of plans in, we sit down for a couple of hours and review it. It's numerous emails and communication, and often meetings with the developer, particularly in large projects. One that comes to mind that was really a driver of a lot of this was the Vista project, an important economic development project that took just an awful lot of time to do, and it had an impact on the rest of the folks that had submitted plans. If we had had the additional staff, we wouldn't have had to backlog some of the other plans. One of the other drivers in our request is that we were seeing plan review times become as long as 30 days per review, and our Board of Supervisors find that as being unacceptable. Our goal and part of our strategic plan is to provide a service to the community that has a maximum turnaround time of 10 working days. We believe we can get there if we can work together on all of the needs we have. I want to thank Rob and Sarah for meeting with us, talking our way through this, and thinking about innovative ways to make this work. So the fees are there on your next sheet, the current fee and the proposed fee for your consideration. Also, we did a comparison that gives you an idea of what our fee increases, the impact they would have on some recently approved projects. And we did meet with the Washington County Home Builders Association, their land use council, 2 weeks ago, and went through all of this in detail, and they've supported our fee increase. And we think that's very important. They not only represent home builders, but also the engineers and consultants that provide services to the land developers. So we're thankful to them and just want to recognize how cooperative they've been in understanding. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but we are seeking approval of our fee increase with an effective date of July 1, 2019.
Did Home Builders Association, I see their letter, what was their concern? I know they had to have a couple concerns. What were their concerns?
One concern that they have raised with us on 2 occasions when we've been with them talking about fee increases is the size of the increase. And their suggestion to us was to consider annual incremental increases that would soften that blow over time. And our intent is to evaluate, as we're required to do each year, is look at that. And by the way, Rob brought that up to us the last time we talked about an increase. And we're going to give that serious consideration so that we don't have to come and ask for such substantial increases at one time, but can do it over time in smaller increments. The other concern that was voiced by one of the members was they wanted to know, why did we place a cap on fees for quarries in the county? And our explanation satisfied them. And the primary reason for that is that the quarries have a permit area. They're required to have a plan approved every 5 years by us. But often, a good many of those acres that are in that permit area are actually undisturbed. So there's nothing for us to actually review other than to say, yes, they're still undisturbed. So we felt putting a cap on those type projects was appropriate. And that was the only concerns that they expressed to us.
And they've seen all the fees and everything. They approved, yeah.
Yes, sir. They've seen everything that we presented to the commissioners.
One of the comments I see in their letter is that maintaining that level of service is important to be, I guess, expeditiously moving these projects forward. It's offset with the fees, that getting the service faster.
Yes,
at a high level.
That's always been their concern, is that they understand that there's a cost to doing business, but if you don't have a excellence in service, anybody that's a fee payer is not too anxious to be in favor of it. And our goal is to improve our service to the community.
Commissioners, any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to support?
I motion to support it.
Is there a second? Second. Hearing a first and a second, is there any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank
5-0.
you.
Thank you. Welcome back again. Increased forest conservation easement per acre payment, participating property owners.
Good afternoon. Steve Goodrich, Department of Planning and Zoning. Mr. Weibly is going to stay here in his seat and help me with this presentation. We're here this afternoon to request that the commissioners approve an increase in the amount of the per acre fee that is paid to private property owners for an easement to protect either existing forest or planted new forest on their private property. A little bit of background: the state of Maryland adopted the Forest Conservation Act in 1991. That required local governments to adopt a similar and compliant program with the state act. Washington County adopted its Forest Conservation Ordinance in 1993, and that ordinance requires that new development make an attempt to minimize the loss of forest cover on the development site, either through retention on the site or through new planting. Those requirements are applied during development plan review, and most development is not approved unless it complies with that ordinance. This is required by the state and the county regulations and applies to most new development, from very small 1 and 2 lot subdivisions to the largest commercial and industrial developments that we hope we see on a regular basis. So we have to do this. An alternate method to compliance with the ordinance requirements, an alternative to retention and planting when those are not feasible, is paying a fee in lieu of that retention or planting. That's the least preferred option, but it is used more often than we would like, actually. That fee is paid to the county. It's kept in a separate account, and it must be used to accomplish the goals of the Forest Conservation Ordinance, which are to protect existing forest cover or to get new forest planted. Through a memorandum of understanding with the Soil Conservation District, we have created a program to use those fees by seeking out conservation-minded private property owners and paying for easements on their property to protect the existing forest cover that's there or to allow planting of new forest cover on their properties. The current amount that we're paying for easements, which is on your agenda report form, either $500 or $800 per acre, that amount was determined in 1997 during our pilot program, and it has not been raised since that time. That was 22 years ago. I want to remind you that these funds come from the fee in lieu of payment by developers. They don't come out of the county's general fund, and they don't go into the county's general fund. Developers pay these fees by their choice. They have other options of retaining or planting on site. They don't have to pay these fees. It's by their choice. Sometimes they don't have options other than to pay the fee, but it's still a choice that's made by the developer rather than an absolute requirement by the county. So, and we must use these funds for the stated purpose of implementing the program. So the proposed increases are on your agenda report form. The easements on existing forests would go from 500 to 1,500. Easements on or easements for new planting within 300 feet of an intermittent stream would go from 800 to 2,000, and easements on planting beyond the 300 feet of a stream would go from 500 to 1,800. There are many components of the dollar per acre figure that it takes to run this program that the Soil Conservation District does for us. So I'm going to turn it over to Elmer and let him go into some more supporting information for why these fees need to be increased and how we got to those particular figures, right?
Yes, thank you, Steve. When we established this program with the Washington County in '97, the county was collecting 10 cents a square foot in the payment in lieu of. So we did a pilot project and did 2 properties in Washington County, and With that, we were able to establish the costs that you see in that. So you have an easement payment to the landowner, you have a cost of planting the trees and doing maintenance for at least 2 years. We charge a fee for our services as well. And when you add all that up and you look at how much is that, you say, well, is it 10 cents a square foot or less? And at the time it was. So we, at that time, we had established the easement payments at where they were because of the amount of money collected, and it worked really well, actually. Through the years, we've exceeded the number of acres that we needed to protect, actually by quite a bit. And when the fee went to 30 cents an acre, there wasn't a lot of economic activity, if I remember right, Steve. And so there wasn't a lot of money in the fund. We had existing projects where we had obligations to plant trees. We have accomplished all of those tree plantings, and we're ready to move ahead with a new program. So we looked at other programs that pay easements, particularly the ag preservation programs are very similar. Then we looked at all the same costs. What's it cost to preserve an acre of tree, to survey it, to pay our fee, to monitor that easement for 20 years at least. And also used our experience over the last 25 years with this program and tree planting and maintenance costs, but also all of the agricultural programs where we plant trees in similar landscape positions. And so the back of our analysis really details what we think are really solid costs associated with this program based on our experience. So we're recommending that the fee be increased because a couple of reasons, really. $500 an acre is just not very attractive, not as attractive as it was in 1997. In order to even make that work, our staff was having to make between 8 and 10 contacts and visits and explanations and walking the land with people to get one person to participate. And as you can imagine, any of the land east of 81 was really not available to us because of the land values. A lot of these projects are in western Washington County where perhaps the land values are somewhat less. We want to concentrate more in the Antietam Creek watershed and closer to where these development activities are happening. So we feel the fund supports the easement payments. We will actually have some money left over per acre for contingency. And as Steve can tell you, when you're in the forestry business, if you don't have contingency money, you sometimes end up with a dead forest. We have things like invasive species, like the emerald ash borer. We actually had to go back about 15 years after a successful tree planting and replant the entire thing recently. We're still ongoing with the maintenance on that. So there's challenges that come up. The easement payment doesn't use all of the money available. It allows for contingency, and we feel it's a strong recommendation to set the new easement payments. If we can move forward, we're ready to go ahead and market the program. The county has a little over $460,000 in the fund, and we'd like to make our best effort at expending that and creating and protecting forests.
Just to clarify, I know in our Crep Rural Legacy and things like that, we got, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, a couple $1 million from the state a year ago or so. Is that part of that money and we're down to 400? This is a separate fund.
Completely separate fund. These funds come from individual developers who pay this
Right.
fee in lieu of doing the.
So they buy out a forest retention or whatever. Yeah. Or, that's
You
one way to
could
put it.
say it that way, yes.
Yeah. So, okay. It wasn't the same fund then.
Right. It's not the same fund.
And okay.
I just want to add to that is that we have never really mixed any of those programs, so there's never an opportunity to do two easements so that a landowner would be getting the benefit of two.
So you wouldn't commingle those?
No, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so once again, we're asking you to approve the per acre easement fee. They're in your agenda report form from $500 to $1,500 for existing forest, from $800 to $2,000 on new planting within 300 feet of a stream, and from $500 to $1,800 on new planting 300 feet beyond the stream.
Commissioners, any more questions?
I motion to approve.
Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is our budget line item for the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts. We're about 10 minutes early. Are you folks all ready to go? If not, commissioners, we'll go ahead and proceed with the museum. Please everyone give your name and address as you see it.
Rebecca Massey Lane, 19200 Foxley Court in Hagerstown, 21742. But I spend most of my time at 401 Museum Drive at City Park.
Lee Stein, 111 Lynmouth Lane, Shepherdstown, West Virginia. Formerly 40 years on a farm in Sharpsburg, Maryland.
I'm Jim Holzaffel, 13011 Fountainhead Road in Hagerstown.
You may begin.
Commissioners, we thank you for your time. I'm Lee Stein, current president of the Board of Trustees of the Washington County Museum. We're here to request line item funding that we previously had for many, many years. I have a long history with the museum. I left the hospital in 1939, and my parents at the time lived in an apartment building at Park Circle. So I spent a lot of time at City Park and the museum. And here I am almost 80 years later as president of that fine organization. Pardon me for reading, but I want to make sure that we have on the record exactly what we're here for. The Board of Trustees requests that the Commissioners return Washington County Museum of Fine Arts to line item status with funding for our year 2020. Originally, we were asking for $140,000. We are quite aware of your funding, some of your funding issues. So we have decided to drop that to 120, which is level funding for us. This will stabilize the Washington County Museum status as a state chartered public museum founded as part of the public local laws of Washington County, Title 12, Article 22 of the Maryland Code of Local Laws of Washington County. Consists of 12 titles or chapters that emulates the power, duties, responsibility, and authority of all aspects of the Washington County government. An entire chapter of code, Title 12, is devoted to the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts. The Washington County Museum of Fine Arts is the only nonprofit that is named in the code. Title 12 spells out the museum's special nature and specifically states that it is a public museum. Thank you.
The museum is a private-public partnership museum, legally a 501c3 nonprofit, but it has the following which really distinguish it. First of all, it was founded by Mr. and Mrs. William H. and Anna Bruce Singer, who gave the museum and their art collection contingent on the promise of faith and aid from the county and the city. The founding of the public museum was accompanied by a body corporate of the Board of Trustees, the City Council, and the County Commission. This body corporate was charged with the care and maintenance of the public museum in perpetuity. The public museum and body corporate are ratified in a Maryland state charter that's part of the public law, as you know. In addition, Title 12 states that every museum trustee takes the Maryland Constitutional Oath of Office to serve as a public official. And on taking office, each elected trustee follows this oath, which is found in Article 1, Section 9 of the Maryland Constitution. The code also states in the powers of the board that the Board of Trustees has the authority to do a number of powers. The seventh power specifically states contract with the county commissioners and the mayor and council of Hagerstown to receive revenues for the museum and to perform other acts necessary to maintain a public museum for the use of inhabitants of Washington County. The museum stands on public land in a long-term open-ended lease with the city of Hagerstown for $1 per year in perpetuity, and the fine arts collection is held in trust for the citizens of the county. It is also a cultural anchor in the four-state region and is an asset in economic development, tourism, quality of life, and its economic impact is calculated at $4 to $6 million per year.
So, Commissioners, in conclusion, as described in the Maryland Code, the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts is specifically listed in a dedicated chapter of the County Code, which states that the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts is an intrinsic part of this county. It is the only charitable organization that is specifically included in the Code of Local Laws of Washington County. It also specifies that the museum should contract directly with both the Washington County Commissioners and the Hagerstown City Council, rather than through an intermediary citizen board. So we want to very, very much thank you for all of your past support. And having been here before, we acknowledge that you're constantly being asked for money. It's not easy to decide who gets what, but we do think having line item status is very important for the Washington County Museum. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
I had a question for Rob. So all that simply means is, instead of going through the community funding organization, that they will just be going through our budget and finance department? So we'll just be moving money back from the community foundation organization to our budget?
From a 30,000-foot level, yes, but
That's all I need.
There are more implications than that.
That's all I need.
Yes.
Could you explain a little bit? You mentioned how the art is held in public trust and how that differs from maybe other museums we might be familiar with.
Well, a lot of art museums do carry that forward if they're affiliated with an entity that is public. As a nonprofit, we own the art as a nonprofit entity, but it's really held in the public trust, which means that it's there for the furtherance of the mission of the museum. It's made available to the public through exhibitions and through permanent collection displays. And there's an active interpretation program and engagement of the public in learning about the art and really helping them discover their own creativity and their potential and their sort of self-expression. So we don't sell it for profit to pay for things like electricity or a boiler. If you sell a work of art, it's because you are thinking about improving the collection and growing it in a direction that has been identified as being of the greatest benefit to your constituents. So it is then, if you sell a work of art, and it is then the money goes directly back into the fund for acquisitions for the future. Does that help answer that?
Yeah, so we wouldn't sell your Norman Rockwell. We
No.
couldn't to pay the county's debt.
And that is certainly
not
one
happen.
that is much prized by this community, and we
My
try
favorite.
try to keep it on view at all times.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
I just got a quick one. Jim, 2 or 3 reasons why I think the obvious reason for a line item is to show your basically stability and you're funded every year. Is that correct? Just help me understand this a little bit.
Well, it's really a unique partnership, Commissioner, and the fact that it's been sort of by law funded by the city, the county, and the community at large, I think that sort of 3 areas of funding has made the museum what it has become for 88 years. And I like to brag a little bit that it's been very successful, but it's not just all about money. It's about all of the work that has been done by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people over that time. And I think just the importance of it being listed as a line item would mean an awful lot to us and sort of separates us from maybe some of the others that don't have the same status legally that the museum does.
Thank you. If I may add, it will also help us in attaining grants.
Okay, gotcha.
Getting grants is a big part of us making our budget. Without grants, we'd be in trouble.
I think you, from the last meeting I had out there, I think you guys done very well fiscally. You're standing on your feet very well out there, I believe. Is that correct, Jim? Yeah, you're doing very well.
Well, you know, we're just trying to do the best we can with what we have. It's not easy, but we sort of feel like it's our job right now to protect what we've fortunate enough to have for the community.
I would add that we raise annually $800,000. That's kind of a hand-to-mouth approach to funding.
So that's what it is, 800,000?
800,000.
That's fundraising?
That's fundraising.
You've done that
Earned
fundraising,
revenue, and it includes the city and county grants. But the rest of it is funding that comes from the work of the people who went before us to build the endowment, and that is seen as a long-term sustaining fund. We only draw 5% on 12 trailing quarters so that we can be here for your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and all of the people into the future.
We have to tell you the stories about hanging our art in your hallways.
Absolutely. We always like to hear those stories. In fact, the children's art show opens this coming weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've had my artwork there.
That's terrific.
I certainly agree with this proposal. I think you presented how unique the Museum of Fine Arts is, especially the fact that you're in our Code of Local Public Law, which I think was an act of this body a couple decades ago to place you there. So
It's 1929.
Okay, in the yeah.
Mhm.
So I think I think the recommended move here isn't necessarily a motion, though. I think it's a consensus, like we do with our other budget processes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what we've done in the past. Similar situations like this, we reach a consensus to put this into our budget, and I would be in favor of that.
I'm okay.
Funding source would be?
Sounds like it's moving from the COF fund directly over.
Yes.
Correct?
I do have to, before I say that, I do have to thank you for level funding, asking for level funding and not an increase, because as you've heard, everyone's asking for an increase, and it's nice to somebody come in and say, hey, we understand you guys are in a tight bunch. We'll take what you had last year, so thank you for that.
Okay, gentlemen, commissioners, is that a consensus from everyone? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
We're a few minutes ahead, but if the Commission on Aging's okay to come forward. Next item is adopted budget line item, Commission on Aging budget review. Please come forward. State your name and address, please.
Maybe it's still there. It was that.
Seven Powers.
8 minutes ahead.
I'm way ahead of you, Rob. Don't you ever forget.
Thank you very much.
I don't think like an engineer. Oh, microphone. Oh, sorry.
Amy Olak, the CEO for the Washington County Commission on Aging at 535 East Franklin Street, Hagerstown, Maryland.
And I'm Bill Beard, President of the Board, 19026 Cherry Tree Drive in Hagerstown.
And we come to you today with a celebration and a report of our 2018 funds expended. And so I'd like to start with you going through the presentation that is before you today, celebrating the success of the county's Area Agency on Aging for the purposes and illustration of the information being provided. It is the end of year 2018 data you'll be looking at. So in today's presentation, we are celebrating 45 years from 1973 to 2018, and we are recognizing you for the endeavors and support and the success of the Area Agency on Aging. If you'll flip to your next page. Just a very brief history. I know you sat through that earlier in the month of March, so I will spare you all the details again. But just a quick history is in 1965, the Older Americans Act was enacted, requiring area agencies on aging to be identified in service areas. In 1973, the Board of County Commissioners unanimously voted to officially designate the County Commission on Aging in Washington County and actually allocated funds in their budget for fiscal year 1973 to 74. In June of 1977, the Commission on Aging became an incorporated nonprofit 501c3. And in July of 1981, the State Director of Aging acknowledged receipt and approval of the formal request of the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County to designate the Washington County Commission on Aging Incorporated as the Area Agency on Aging for Washington County effective October 1st, 1981. And in just 2 short years, in FY 2021, we'll be celebrating 40 years of that official recognition. So a sincere thank you goes out for these 45 years of commitment and support for seniors, those with disabilities, and caregivers. Without your support and the support of the county commissioners today and those that preceded you and the staff, today's celebration would not be possible. The next slide is a census chart from the Maryland Department of Aging, coming from the Maryland Department of Planning, showing that we serve the fastest growing segment of our county's population. Those that are 60 and older have surpassed the number of school-age children in Washington County. There is a projection of a 5,000 increase in population from 2015 to 2020 for those age 60 and older. There's one guarantee in life, and I know as I say that, somebody's up there thinking, you die, right? No, I'm going to tell you that from the day you're born, you start to age. And that's who we serve. We all start to age. And so we celebrate our milestones in life, from your first birthday to anniversaries, and we celebrate those things numerically. If you're fortunate enough, you will celebrate enough birthdays to earn the title of senior. The FY 2020 census, I'm sure, is no surprise how important that will be in determining and capturing the growth of this ever-growing population in our county. The next slide, you'll see a picture of a young boy. And in 1973, when the county commissioners unanimously voted to fund the Commission on Aging, this young senior that we serve today was just 10 years old. This is for illustration purposes only, but I will tell you this is an actual senior we serve in his photo. And in 1973, you invested in him as a child through his education. As he grew older, the county afforded him many wonderful opportunities. The local community college, healthcare services right in his county, social services, and safety, just to name a few. In turn, as he aged, he provided back to the county economic support through his employment, voting, and paying taxes. And he ultimately created a home for his family. As you flip the page, you will see that he is now 55 years old and able to participate, and I will say a member of our senior center. So he is now seeing the benefits that were invested from 1973 and the subsequent years of the investment the county has made in seniors. He can now enjoy that beautiful senior center and all the amazing educational, health, and fitness opportunities it offers. You see, Jay is just one of our 1,800 plus members, and one of the younger ones at that. Tomorrow, there will be many more aging to that senior status in our county. This is just one example of the circle of life investment that each of you have made in the citizens of Washington County. If you flip to the next page, with your support, our agency is able to offer a comprehensive program of supports and services to those we serve, offering over 50 programs. As your area agency on aging, we are also considered the county's Aging and Disability Resource Center. Many of the programs we have waiting lists due to the demand for their services. Several of our programs support the local economy. You see, many of our programs allow those that are eligible to enroll in programs and reduce the cost of out-of-pocket expenses for their medications, health insurance, groceries, etc., allowing them to free up discretionary income that is used locally. If you flip the page, the Senior Center. Having over 1,800 members, we got this one right. Thank you to you and those that came before you. The #1 marketing rule is location, 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 and I think we got this right. I don't think anyone would have imagined that within 2 years we would have more than doubled the membership at that senior center and be looking for space because we don't have enough room for everyone to participate in activities. I think it's amazing that there is such a demand and a desire to participate at that center. If you flip the page to 2018 funds raised, over $19,000 were raised by the Commission on Aging through a variety of efforts. Fundraising, our annual campaign, our senior expo that some of you attended, a raffle, donation boxes, letters of request, employee donations, and general donations. Project income is how you'll find it stated in several of our financial statements because these funds are restricted. And many of you sitting here today have supported our fundraising efforts, and we thank you for that contribution and look forward to your continued support. In the back of your folder, you will find a presentation that looks like this. So I'll talk to you first at the bottom of the page. It actually shows you the pie chart. Our overall budget was approximately $3.1 million for 2018. And during that year, we received $806,000, or 25% of our budget, from the county organizational funding process. We have received that $806,000 from the county for fiscal years 17, 18, and 19. On page 11 of your presentation, it shows the funds expended, the breakdown of those 2018 funds expended. And so you'll see that wages and benefits consisted of $605,230, operating costs, $106,190, indirect wages and benefits of $94,580, coming to a total of $806,000. Looking at the future needs of the organization, in the FY 2020 competitive grant process, we requested $951,205, and I think it's important to note that we currently have 43.5% of our staff making less than $15, as you know, the minimum wage requirement that will go into effect in 2025. The breakdown of the operating costs are provided on your sheet that was in the back of there, so if you have questions about what goes into that. If you flip to page 12, the timeline, you'll see from 2014 through the 2018, looking back at this agency, I think the growth speaks for itself. As more individuals age and hear about our services, more will be inclined to seek them out. Those we serve today are the youth and young adults that your predecessors invested in over 45 years ago. Today's seniors are the ones who paved the way, literally, for what we have today. You see, those seniors were software developers, doctors, lawyers, bank tellers, bank presidents, manufacturers, farmers, teachers, policemen, firefighters, medics, restaurant owners, construction workers, mechanics, and many other professions that have created the society in which we work and live. An investment in seniors is an investment in your very own future. You see, there's no guarantee that we'll age to 55 or beyond. However, if we're so fortunate to earn the title of senior, we deserve it. Seniors are intelligent, valuable, and have much worth. Though they have made it to retirement age, their contributions in this county continue. They're volunteers, taxpayers, and voters, and some are still employed. They have helped to build this community and continue to help sustain it. If you flip to the next page, you'll see a comparison chart. In an effort to compare apples to apples, this chart looks at the Maryland Department of Planning 2018 population for those 60 and older for 3 counties, Allegheny County, Frederick County, and Washington County. It also looks at the 2019 county budget information for each county pulled directly from their respective county websites. It's important to note that the Allegheny Area Agency on Aging is also a nonprofit, just like ours. And the Frederick County Area Agency on Aging is a county-owned and operated area agency on aging. You can see from the breakdown based sheerly on senior population where we fall per contribution per senior. Sure, one can say that not every senior takes part in our services, and that's true. But it's also true of our many other services provided across this county that are not utilized by every person either. You see, I personally equate this to insurance. You have it in case you need it. You may not need us today, and none of us are sure what tomorrow or 5 years from now will ever bring. As this census continues to grow, it will require us to have a strategic plan to meet the needs and demands of this growing population. If you flip to the next page, how will we continue to serve the fastest growing segment of our county population as waiting lists grow and there is currently a 4 to 6 week wait for appointments? You know, the basic principle in business of supply and demand lives in our organization. Unfortunately, demand has overcome the supply, resulting in these waiting lists, longer appointment time waits, less availability of services that are necessary to keep individuals in their home for as long as safely possible. The cost of home and community-based care, as we all know, is much less than institutionalized care. The Area Agency on Aging tries our best to serve those with the greatest social and economic need first. However, even then, seniors go without due to the increased demand and lack of available supply. If you flip to the next page, together we will achieve more. Although current supplies are not enough to meet demands, we have to acknowledge that your funds have enabled us to leverage over $1.8 million in state and federal funds to support seniors, those with disabilities, and caregivers. Without your support, this is not possible. You deserve recognition for the investment that you have made in seniors, allowing these funds to be brought into the community and to continue to serve. We thank you for your continued support and contribution to those that we serve, seniors, those with disabilities, and caregivers. And finally, the Commission on Aging is more than a nonprofit serving Washington County seniors. It's the county's Area Agency on Aging. You each should be very proud and celebrate with us the amazing 45 years of service that you have enabled us to provide. And I have to say that no celebration is ever complete without a cupcake. So I'm going to ask Tim Delbruge to pass out the cupcakes for each of you. And at this time, I thank you for your time and support and ask you if you have any questions.
Can I just make one comment before you ask questions? Just to underline a couple of the numbers that are in here that Amy talked about. 7,400 of our citizens have participated, and through their participation, $1.8 million of funds were brought into this county on programs they may or may not have known that existed. So that's money that's been spent here through the efforts of the Commission on Aging, and I sometimes think that number gets lost.
Look at you giving up. I just have one question. What's your plans, Amy, for fundraising in this next year?
So we'll continue to do our annual fundraising. We're putting together a new fundraising committee to work with several individuals. We have a gentleman from the public who's reached out to offer to help, Dick Everhart, so we're really excited to work with him. And Wayne has offered to also support us as the commissioner, as well as Terry, to help with that fundraising effort. And so we'll continue to look at opportunities to do that and grow.
Amy, I'd like to thank you, and I know you have some staff members here, and your board is here, and some users of all of the services that you provide. Thank you for the great services that you can provide to our citizens here in Washington County. You know, I've been reading about a global baby bust that we have going on right now. The birth rates in mainly developed nations like the United States is on the decline, and that means the percentage of our citizen population is older. on average than before. That's a growing trend that we're going to face well into the future. And I had someone ask me when I was quoted, I think in the newspaper, what did I mean by I hope one day I can use your services? I hope I live long enough one day. But this picture here, really hit it home for me. I think that describes my point perfectly, that, what we do today impacts, in this case, the Commission on Aging for the next 45 years. And so I guess with that question, I know for many organizations we've had to provide level funding for because of our budget constraints, but I wonder with our budget that's being proposed, is there any room for an increase of any kind? Is that something that we can look at, or is that possible? Possible.
Well, the budget right now is balanced as it is, so any change in the budget would require a reduction elsewhere. And please keep in mind also, we do have the $90,000 match related to the construction project in the 2020 budget as well, in addition to the 806.
I just want to make sure that we're planning with those national trends, worldwide trends of an aging population, that we're prepared, when our time in office is over.
That match is, excuse me, Brandon. That match is interesting because if we expand the senior center, which is necessary, certainly a popular place, and we've outgrown what we have, without additional funding, we're not going to have the staff to use the space that we then appropriate.
Good point.
And Commissioner, are you trying to tell us you look as young as that gentleman in the packet?
Maybe at one day not too long ago, but.
Commissioners, any other comments? Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you, and still looking forward to a luncheon down at the senior center.
Yes, I think it's rescheduled for May 7th, so hope to see all of you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Yep, thank you all.
Policy PR 22, boards and commissions.
Young.
Oh, go ahead, I'm just stretching my knee.
Okay.
Please, thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Deb Payton, Director of Health and Human Services. I'm here today to ask for a motion to approve PR 22 Boards and Commission revisions. The Health and Human Services Division and the County Clerk have reviewed and revised Policy PR 22 Boards and Commissions to remove the language regarding the Economic Development Commission, which is no longer active. Under Section 3, Residency Requirements, the heading has been renamed Residency and Attendance Requirements. The section now states, applicants must be county residents to be considered for appointment. The previous language regarding the exclusion as it applies to the Economic Development Commission has been removed. In Section 4, Term Limits has been revised to state, appointments and term limits. The contents of item 4 now states, membership on a board or commission may be terminated by voluntary withdrawal or removal by the board at the board's sole discretion. The previous language read, a member of the board or commission may be removed by the board in the best interest of the community. In addition, a fifth element was added that states, all board and commission members shall be administered the oath of office within 30 days from the appointment. We request your permission or vote to approve this policy revisions.
If the board's been eliminated, or decommissioned, why are we doing this? Am I missing something?
The old policy stated that there was a Economic Development Commission.
So we're not having
You're removing a reference to a commission that
no longer
exists.
Is there any way possible in the future that we reconstitute the economic development?
This would be for all boards and commissions, correct?
Yeah, this is standard boards and commission policy.
Okay.
And Commissioners, there's one thing that I failed to consider here and before this came before you, and that is that the civility training that applies to all the boards. Should that be considered here? I would ask Kirk. I'm sorry I didn't bring that before you. It just occurred to me at this moment, whether that should be here or that does not need to be here.
I have a, sorry.
I mean, I'm not sure that it necessarily needs to be there. It certainly wouldn't hurt if you wanted to say that boards and commissions will comply with, county policies as imposed by the board. I mean, but that seems fairly elementary. I mean, I don't think it has to be there to require it.
And Rob, if I'm not mistaken, it may be in our anti-harassment policy. It does state that boards and commissions have to adhere to that particular policy.
Provided there's some reference that you can look toward, both your office and your office can look toward to say this is why we're presenting this.
I think there's something in the definition of who the policy applies to that covers it.
Mm-hmm. I believe you're correct.
I just want to get a little clarification on number 4. It says a member on a board or commission may be terminated by voluntary withdrawal or removal by the board at the board's sole discretion. So is that saying removal by the board of county commissioners can remove them, or their own board that they're on can remove them?
No, it's the Board of County Commissioners, because it's a capitalized reference referring back to paragraph 1, purpose. The Board of County Commissioners is defined as the board. So you're looking at term limits, is that?
Yeah, under term limits, section 4. So a member, okay, so because it's a capitalized board.
The capitalized board is a defined term in the policy, and yes, it refers to this board, the Board of County Commissioners' ability to remove a lowercase board or commission member. That is in the best interest of the community.
Outstanding, thank you.
Any more questions? Is there a motion?
I make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. 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 5-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Retirement policy changes, welcome back.
Thank you.
I stole that from Terry Baker, by the way. Welcome back.
Commissioners, it's myself and Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer, presenting this recommendation for discussion purposes. The Retirement Committee is requesting several changes to the retirement plan. The purpose of the changes are recommended by Bolton USA to improve the overall stability of the plan and the future growth of our assets. In accordance with the Washington County Retirement Plan, the Retirement Committee held the required quarterly meeting on March the 4th, 2019. Mr. Colin England, Senior Consultant Actuary, and Eric Abodi, Senior Consultant from Bolton USA, the county's actuary broker, outlined the current status of the plan and made recommendations for improvement. The OPEB and LOCEP plans are well funded. The county's retirement plan is currently funded at 58%. The following benefit changes have been recommended by Bolton USA to better align the county's plan with the current market conditions and expectations for the future years. The recommendations were reviewed and have been approved by the Washington County Retirement Committee. Effective July 1st, 2019, the plan will no longer offer the in-service retirement plan, also known as the ISRP. Number 2 is effective January 1st, 2020, the 6% earned interest on employee funds that accumulate in the DROP program will decrease to 4% for all future DROP participants. Current DROP participants or those entering before January 1st, 2020 will remain at 6%. Number 3, effective January 1st, 2020, the interest rate earned by vested employees leaving their monies in the county plan will decrease from 6% to 4% annual multiplier when they become retirement eligible. This applies to all employees who leave county employment on or after January 1st, 2020. Number 4, effective July 1st, 2019, all new employees will be required to work 10 years to become vested. Existing employees will remain at the 5-year vested period. Number 5, for fiscal year 2020, the county will change the plan funding for the current unfunded accrued liability from the current 15-year level percent of pay amortization to the 20-year level, dollar level. Any future increases or decreases in the UAL for gains or losses would be amortized over 15 years. Shorter periods would apply to benefit improvements such as retiree COLAs. The investment return would be reduced from a 7.5% to a 7.25% rate.
To make a correction there, it'd be the assumed rate of return, not the investment return, because it's the assumed rate of return.
Okay.
Because if the investment performance does better, then that would benefit us.
All right, thank you. The Retirement Committee considered a standard methodology for future retiree cost of living increases, or COLAs. The committee concluded to defer any standard methodology until the plan reaches an 80% funding level. Effective July 1st, 2019, for new employees only, the normal retirement age will be 62 years of age and 30 years of service. This represents a change from the current plan, which benefits made payable at 60 years with 25 years of service. This was a recommendation from the actuary due to the changes in the workforce demographics. There will be no changes to the uniform law enforcement normal retirement age or years of service. That is the recommended changes from Bolton USA. We do have some dollar amounts attached to those if you're interested in hearing them.
Commissioners, any questions at this time?
Do you have a list of any changes that were suggested but not voted on?
Yes,
with the majority?
Yes, one of the recommendations was instead of using a 3-year average salary, we would use a 5-year average salary. And the Retirement Committee chose not to do that.
Okay.
There was also other discussion related to contributions made by public safety employees being 8% versus the 6%, and that's also not being brought to you today.
There was also different, 20-year level pay versus level dollar. So those were also brought, and we went with the 20-year level dollar versus the level pay percent. There was also a 30-year that we did not look at all. And then we also looked at, very briefly in the very first discussion, bringing it from 7.5% down to 7%, the assumed rate of return.
Someone summarized for me, how's it affect our current employees? What's the worst thing? How's it affect them?
The current employees are most affected by the 6% to 4% change, which would be effective January 1, 2020. And the benefit of changing that for the county is to better align ourselves with what the market currently does and what the rates are currently offered at outside.
Give me an example of that, 6 to 4. Give me, just to make something up, example.
Well, I did a little analysis, and based on an average of the current people in the drop plan, where they would, hold on, let me.
An average salary, I believe.
24 an average monthly annuity of $2,496. They're probably looking at a reduction from 6% to 4% at about $6,711.
So
It would be a savings to the plan over the years of about $100,000.
The employee, when he does retire in a drop, is going to get less money, correct?
If they enter the drop after January 1st.
Yes.
So,
After January 1st.
Yes.
Another way to put it, Commissioner Wagner, is that currently in the drop, the employee is guaranteed 6% return on their funds in that program. That largely exceeds what the county receives in returns. So in other words, the county is funding the drop program at 6%. It's probably more accurately, and Court could speak to the more accurate number, is closer to 3%. So it was a compromise to present 4%.
But if, I guess and you can probably clear this up, if I'm an employee and I went to drop program based on what I think I'm going to get, and then it turns out I'm not going to get that because we just changed it.
If you're
That
currently in the
can't-
drop program, you get 6%.
Yeah, if you're currently in the program or you're.
Okay, so if you're currently in, then that's fine then for
Yes.
me, because it's new people go in that they know that up front and they can make a logical decision.
It is, and
currently
that's
in, or if you enter before January 1st, then you're getting that 6%. And that's what Rob was talking about. It's that, and during the discussions, one of the things was to look lowering that down to 3%, which is 3% is a much more market rate. Because imagine going to anywhere and saying, I want a guaranteed 6% rate of return on my retirement income. You're not going to get it anywhere.
Yeah, I just didn't want a county employee to be sold a bill of goods in and then misled and lose money.
No, so if they're currently, if they're,
Are we making any money on that investment from their contribution?
their taxpayers are funding that 6%. But I also, the other thing I want to point out as a benefit, and I think this is a huge benefit that most people are not going to understand. I believe one of our biggest things with our pension is we have to make sure that it is there for the current employees, it's there for the future employees, and it can pay the benefits that we've promised to our employees. And by lowering that assumed rate of return from 7.5% to 7.25%, it was higher earlier. By lowering that assumed rate of return, that our investment money managers, which we just hired a new one, they have a better average. They can get to that assumed rate of return. If they outperform that average, it's going to increase our percentage funding, where we currently at 58%. So that, I think, is a huge benefit to the clients. By having a lower assumed rate of return, they have a better chance of outperforming it, thus making our pension stronger for every employee in Washington County.
So with this percentage drop, do you anticipate a lot of people filing for the drop program between now and January 1st?
Yes.
20, 30?
I really wouldn't, we probably have about half a dozen right now because they read the agenda report, so they are already anticipating some
And I
things
think
that-
that's one of the reasons too why January 1 is the effective date, because we figured employees would need time to think about that and make that decision for themselves.
I suppose you're asking us to draw a line somewhere, but there would be employees that might not be even eligible to sign up for drop until February 1.
That's correct.
Right. So they would go into the
They
lower
would be
plan.
subject to the 4%. That's correct.
And 4% still is a very, very generous
It is.
rate because, again, try to go anywhere and get a guaranteed of 4%.
Right.
Commissioners, this is a recommendation for information only. Any other questions?
Well, I mean, there's changes to the pension funding policy, right? So you're going to have to adopt
Yes,
the
originally
revisions to
when-
the policy.
Originally, when we were coming in to present this, I was under the impression that there may be a consensus to move forward with these changes. So the changes to the pension funding policy are included. If the board is not going to make a decision.
I'd like to wait at least one more week before. I'd like to get some feedback from people and then give you that consensus.
Sure.
I do.
One thing I'd like to mention to the commissioners with this presentation is staff has been asked to bring a balanced budget, and you'll hear more about that later. But these changes do mean that we're trying to approach that balanced budget. And these changes do mean that we are trying to reduce the load on the taxpayer, because the taxpayer is paying the extra 2% today. So these are not changes to people, as you mentioned, that are in the program today, but they would affect at some date. And if you'd like to move the dates, we can move the dates. But we would like to return next week so that the budget can be drawn up.
And in this, if I'm correct, this will strengthen our current percentage funded and lower our cost to the general fund significantly, to the general expenses.
Yes.
And I don't remember everybody that was in the committee, but we had members from the committee from water, sewer, the roads. We had
Someone from the sheriff's office.
Sheriff's office,
Union representation.
And they came to this agreement, and there was some give and take. We asked for the 10-year, and they asked for the 3-year instead of 5 years. So there's some definitely give and take to come to a huge savings to the general fund, and giving them a much better benefit. So I am fine moving forward with this, but I can understand to talk to people waiting till next week. But
Yeah, I mean, my only concern was the county employees. I mean, do they know about this? Is this the first they're hearing about this, or?
Yes.
Notice has not been sent out yet to them.
And I agree, Rob. I agree 100% what you said. We have to, and what Court said, percentage, but then, sort of Wayne made a comment about you got to draw a line somewhere. But maybe I'd like to see if there was 5 people came to you and said, hey, I'm not eligible till February. Well, then maybe you draw the line in February. But, if just don't miss somebody by 20 days or 10 days or 5 days.
Okay, understood.
February, then somebody's going to miss it by March.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'd like to test the waters. And what if there's, what if there's 10 employees that could do it? You guys have a way of figuring out who's eligible.
Yes, we do.
In January. Then you have a way of figuring out who's eligible in February?
Yes, we could.
Okay, then maybe you just see and I know what Court's saying, and March are going to do the same thing. But I don't want the employees to think, Washington County, I mean, we're making a lot of cuts here, and we're doing a lot of good things to help absorb some of this deficit, but I don't want the employees of Washington County thinking they're carrying the burden either.
Yeah, our employees are one of our biggest assets.
Yeah, I just don't want
I don't
that.
want them to make
But I understand what Court's saying. It's a good investment, 4%. I mean, it's.
And also that's what I'm saying, is they're a big investment, and that's why we got to strengthen this 54% funded, 58% funded. We need to get that up, and that's what this is doing, because I'd rather get 4% than 15 years, 20 years down the road, and I'm trying to retire, and then all of a sudden, I'm looking at this and it's 45% funded, and I got to reduce my pension. I don't want to be Detroit. We've got to look at this now.
So this is basically, I'm not against it by any means. I'm all for it. I just wanted to explore a couple more. I just wanted to get more clarification. You worked on it. I didn't understand it as well.
Commissioners, we okay with waiting 1 week to bring
Yeah,
it
I'd like
back?
to wait, but I did have a question. You said the uniformed people will have their full retirement in 25 years?
That is how the current plan is set up,
So
and there
all
have
the
been.
other employees will have to wait for 30?
That's how the current plan is set up, Mr. Baker. It's the current employees can go at 25 years of service or 60 years of age if they chose to go to the 6%. The Sheriff's Department, the uniformed people have been paying 6% since the
Right,
day they
that's
started
right.
employment, and they are allowed to go at 50 years of age or 25 years of service.
And this was a recommendation from Bolton based on the population living longer, working longer. So that's what they're seeing in the industry, and that's why this was brought to the table. In addition, county employee general employees did used to be 30 years.
It did used to be 30.
Well,
So they'll still be eligible for 25 years if they wish?
No, this proposal is for new employees
Understand.
only,
So
changing them
new
from.
uniform hires will fall into the 25-year plan if they so wish.
New
And
uniform.
I don't understand the reason for uniform can have a 25-year plan and the non-uniform can't.
It's based on the job that they do, and that's industry-wide. It is very common for
Is it life
uniformed
inspect-
employees to have a lesser.
Life expectancy for uniform employees, isn't it? Or
I don't know necessarily if it's life expectancy, but I do think it is a stress of the job, the type of work that they do plays a part in it.
Driving that snowplow would be stressful to me.
any more questions?
Do you know if there are any statutory mandates that set those 25 years for uniform employees?
I do not. I can double check on that for you and bring that to you next week.
And I'm not against the uniform officers having 25-year retirement, but I think it should be, I'm going to have a hard time not supporting it for everyone. It's their money that they contribute.
It is also a recruitment tool for the Sheriff's Department to gain, to recruit people to come into the Sheriff's Department. And that has been set. They also have.
How many officers are they short right now?
Yes, they are.
Well, then wouldn't a recruitment tool be 5 years vested than 10 if we're gonna get a recruitment tool?
I guess I would just like to know the difference in cost for not offering all employees a 25-year plan.
The cost to make the change to 30 years and age 62 for retirement won't be seen until 15 or 20 years down the road because you're talking about new employees starting now. And the estimated cost for that was around $700,000.
So that would cost us
Savings of
$700,000 less.
Yes.
Under this proposal, how much does this save us?
Right now,
Yeah, under this new proposal, how much does it save us?
about $1 million per year.
That's included in the.
It is included in the current
That's included in
budget.
the current budget.
It is assumed in the current budget, correct.
Okay, any other
That's
questions?
only 6 months. That won't be a full year.
What's that?
This doesn't start until January. That's $1 million savings for 6 months.
No, that $1 million is directly associated with the reduction in the assumed rate of return of the 7.25% and the 20-year level dollar amortization. So that piece is what's driving that $1 million.
All right, commissioners, bring it back next week for a decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Co-pay and premium discussion. Deb Payton, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. I'm asking for a motion to approve the proposed copay changes for the health and pharmacy benefits effective July 1st, 2019. In fiscal year 2019, the county experienced a 15% increase in claims over the prior period. In budget year 2020, the county recommends increasing the copays for primary care, specialists, urgent care, and emergency rooms. The county provides an excellent health care plan for employees, retirees, and their family members. However, in the current fiscal year, medical spending has increased by 15%. This increase is primarily due to an increase in emergency room visits, hospitalizations, and key chronic conditions. Per Aetna's records, 30% of the ER visits were non-emergent and could have been handled by a primary care physician, urgent care clinic, retail clinic, or a teledoc. In addition, chronic conditions such as high cholesterol, gastritis, low back pain, and hypertension increased over the prior period. These chronic conditions are viewed as actionable from Aetna, meaning that in some cases, diet and exercise could impact the severity of these conditions, which would impact the claims. The county looks forward to maintaining the level of benefits that has been provided in the past. In order to do so, the county must increase premiums by 7%. This increase is being proposed to only affect the employer portion of the premiums paid due to the delay and reduced wage increase for employees. The county is, however, recommending copays for services increase for fiscal year 2020. These increases would be in lieu of an increase in premiums to the employees. Effective July 1st, 2019, the following copay changes are recommended. The copay for primary care physician and low option plan would increase to $30. Currently, it is $20. For the high option plan, it would increase to $35. Currently, it is $25. The copays for the specialist and the low option plan will increase to $35 from the current $25. The high option plan will increase to $40 from the current $30. The projected cost savings for these plan changes is expected to be $149,092. The copay for urgent care in both plans will increase to $50 from the current $35. The projected savings for this plan change is expected to be $10,172. The copay for the emergency room in both plans will increase to $200 from the current $100. The projected savings is expected to be $111,894. We are also recommending changes to copays in pharmacy to $15 for generic, $35 for brand name, and $50 for the non-formulary prescriptions. The current copay structure is $10 for generic, $20 for the brand, and $35 for non-formulary. The projected savings is estimated to be $93,800. A summary of the changes is provided in your ARF in a graph form. The total potential savings of all I had just suggested is $364,958.
Explain the 7% again. We're not increasing.
The 7% is related to the employer portion of the premium. So the entire premium is broken out between employer and employee. So the employer pays a portion and the employee pays a portion. So what we're recommending here is that the employer portion increase because we need additional funds going into our health account due to the costs. But because of the delayed and reduced wage increase for employees beginning in January of 2020, at a potential 2.5%, we're recommending not increasing the employee premium at this time for them. Instead, and in lieu of doing that, we feel that some increases to copays are necessary to drive some savings into the healthcare plan.
So in other words, coming out of the deductible for healthcare will remain constant. There will be no additional dollar value reduced from the paycheck. However, attending a doctor's office or a prescription copay, that would cost more. With that, the county is still paying 7% more than it did in the prior year because healthcare costs are up. So this is both the employer and the employee contributing to the increased cost while trying to keep the paycheck the same so there's no reduction in paycheck.
Well, what's the driving from emergency room? Are you trying to, emergency room or urgent care? I mean, I assume both of them were sort of the same, but you're trying to get people not to go to the emergency room but go to urgent care? Is that what
The
that's all
emergency
about?
room is very expensive and has contributed to the increase in claims, and that report was information given to us from Aetna. And further, 30% of those visits were found to be not necessarily emergency room related, like they didn't have to go to the emergency room. So what we're trying to do is get our employees to use other options such as their primary care or urgent care instead of the emergency room.
So if I got chest pains, I'm going to think about where I want to go to save $100, right?
No, sir, you wouldn't. You would definitely go to the ER, but the type of diagnoses that Aetna was seeing in the emergency room was something like sinusitis and sore throats.
So when you say it's going to increase the county's cost, or we're going to absorb a 7% increase, what's that in total dollars?
7% increase is around $550,000 to the county. And that is included in the current proposed budget.
So then would we subtract the potential savings from that? For our
The
total?
potential savings are necessary on top of that to contribute to fund the plan fully. Now, the savings are a projection, and the cost savings are listed on this chart if there's something that you would like to.
How's this affect retirees? Or their copays increase as well?
Their copays, will increase slightly because they pay 50% of the entire premium. So because the employer portion of the premium is increasing by 7%, it means the entire premium will increase.
That's correct.
The only thing that I would like to see changed for what you just described, and I understand it's not a little bit, but the emergency room, we don't want to have people going there for, like you said, a sore throat. But urgent care, we want them to go, if you have short throat, strep throat. So for $10,000 savings, is it really worth going from $35 to $50?
I was thinking along the same lines, might it help entice some employees to give urgent care a try?
So Do you prefer to keep it at 35?
I'm comfortable with every other one, but the urgent care, I'd be comfortable keeping that at 35. And if we're enticing them to go for a sore throat, $35, that's mine.
Okay.
But other than that, I'm comfortable.
Okay with
Why
200.
he's a commissioner. That's why he's a commissioner. He comes up with all the great ideas. It is a good one.
Do we know, this is kind of off the wall question maybe, how many urgent care facilities do we have in Washington County?
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but
We have
there's,
the new one out in, off of Morgansville, right?
Yeah, there's a
there
lot.
are a lot.
What are
Probably
their
8,
hours?
probably 6 or 8.
Ye-
Yeah.
Well, there's probably, 4 Meritus. I know there's 3 UNIs.
And there's Med Express, which is
There's
different.
Med Express, there's 2 Med Express. So yeah,
So
we're
that's probably 8.
Yeah, we're probably 8 or 9.
Okay. And so the 30%, I can see some people going to the ER when they don't need to. Are they open around the clock? Is that a 24/7 option?
Yeah, and really urgent care is not.
I think there's one.
Now,
Is
they
that the-
quit. That used to be till
On Eastern, that's 24. It's like anytime something.
Okay.
Okay. And
you got hacksaws and rubber hammers.
Is that the pediatric
I think so.
office? After hours pediatric, maybe?
Yeah, it's a little
Have a
tougher because the new one used to be open until 10. Now it doesn't open to 10 like the Sylvan Center. So, but it all sounds good to me. I mean, I agree with Court and Wayne on the,
urgent care.
yeah, I mean,
Right, that's 3 to change that. Everybody okay with the change for that?
So do we need to make a motion for this with the change?
Pardon me?
Then I will make the motion
What if you
to approve proposed copay changes with the change that urgent care goes back to the $35.
Yeah, but we'll have to have a motion on the floor, have the second, we have some discussion prior to.
No, I think I'm okay with moving forward. I was thinking about holding off a week just to make sure I fully understand everything. But I think I'm ready to move forward.
All right, okay, your motion is in with the change? You're okay, okay. Sorry, we were talking while you were
Oh, I'm
making
sorry.
your motion, so we apologize.
Oh, so then I make the motion to approve the proposed copay changes with the change of the urgent care staying at $35.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
a second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Andy DeVito. Solid Waste Supervisor Consolidation Plan.
Good afternoon again. Dan DeVito, Director of Division of Environmental Management. Dave Mason, Deputy Director of Solid Waste. We're here today to ask you for approval for the consolidation plan that we've devised in order to, this position, there was a vacancy that was created by a retirement back in January of Kathy Mills. And when that person retired, that reduced the number of supervisors that we had available at the landfill from 3 to 2. And we are required by permit to have a supervisor on the premise at all times. So when we have a 6-day operation, that we need to have at least, and with the responsibilities that Dave has with other things and with the other responsibilities of the other supervisor, we felt that it was necessary that we had 3 supervisors. So what we did, by consolidating Tony Drury's position into the superintendent position, Kathy's old position, and including his recycling responsibilities, and taking that from a grade 14 to a grade 15. Then take one of the way clerks, and we are going to advertise, we're asking also the permission to internally advertise the position of supervisor for the way clerks. What we end up with here is we end up with a superintendent grade 15, and we've got our 3rd supervisor with one of the way clerks, so we do it internally, and we end up reducing the overall number of positions by one, which results in a savings of approximately $71,000. And then it helps us meet our responsibilities to have that supervisor available at all times.
Taking two directions, one from Vice President Baker, which is reduce the chiefs, not the Indians. This takes from 5 to 4 in the office that's in the main entrance as you come in off Earth Care Road by the additional responsibility of Mr. Drury. And it applies a supervisor, which is lost because there's a position lost in the office, gives that responsibility to someone who may compete for it down at the weight clerk position. So that person would receive a slight promotion if you approve and they're afforded the position. So reduces cost, as Dan said, reduces the chiefs. And also, it's an attempt by staff to reduce any rate hikes at the landfill this year and in the future.
And this is part of the overall reduction in staff that we will talk about in the future. This amount is included in that amount.
Commissioners, any questions, comments?
So explain that you have to have a supervisor on hand at all times?
Yes, per our permit, during landfill operations, we have to have a supervisor on site.
So how many hours a week's the landfill open?
Well, we're open 6 days a week from 7 to 3:30, so.
Is that 9 hours a day?
Roughly, yes, yeah.
So that's 54 hours. Well, you said 6
days a week, yeah.
Any more comments,
You're
questions?
going to have you're going to have 3 people supervising for 54 hours?
Well, both my duties and Mr. Drury's duties take us off site on a regular basis, so the third supervisor will be there to oversee while we're out and about doing our regular business.
Not only that, but when they're out and about doing other things, and at those times when they are doing that, you also have to add in vacation coverage, sick time coverage, and by the time you do that, we've tried in the water quality department to, like, for example, run a wastewater plant or a water plant with only 2 guys, and trust me, it was my idea and it didn't work. Because you need that third person to be able to provide the flexibility for the coverage. It's not only with the responsibilities that Dave has and Tony would have. Tony, again, is the recycling coordinator, so there is meetings that a recycling coordinator has to attend and promotions and everything that he has to attend off-site. So when those responsibilities call him off-site and Dave has to be off-site, then this person would be the supervisor helping us meet that permit requirement.
Would it be an accurate summary to say that you've reduced the supervisor, saved $71,000, reorganized, and bestowed more duties on people to make up the difference? Would that be accurate?
Absolutely.
Any more questions, comments?
Somewhere in the budget, isn't there aren't we going to be cutting an employee out there this year?
That is this. That is this approach and this reorganization, and I've included it in the budget.
That's cutting or not replacing one that retired?
Not replacing,
Right.
but yes.
So what area is that?
Well, actually, I think that position, we were leaving that position.
If I may, you've got this position which is long-standing and in the budget. This is a chief. Again, this is a grade 15 position that existed. Ms. Mills retired.
How long ago did she retire, Rob?
Approximately 3 months.
Well, January 1st.
January.
Approximately 3 months. That position is not recommended to be replaced. However, there are some duties that Ms. Mills performed that we are consolidating those duties with Mr. Drury's position. Mr. Drury is half of the position, so that's why we're not advertising it, because he already has those responsibilities. As Commissioner Wagner said, it's the reduction of a staff member through attrition. The other one that was mentioned 2 weeks ago approximately, if not last week, was a operator which will be retiring. That may or may not be refilled. we will determine that as we go on. So there are the potential for two. There certainly is this one. And we will have to gauge as we move further if that operator is necessary or not. So.
And that's consistent with the way we're treating every single position that comes up that becomes vacant. If it becomes vacant by a retirement, by natural attrition where someone just decides to take another position, someone else, we're going to look at every single position with that kind of an attitude. Is this position a position where we can save money, or do we actually need this position to make sure that we have continuity of operation and to secure and to make sure that we have a safe operation?
So you're saying this vote today doesn't include that operator. This is just a consolidation.
Correct.
Would it be possible to ask for a little more time to consider this? And the reason I say that is typically with personnel changes, this is an issue that might come before us in closed session where we can have more deeper conversations. I was kind of surprised to see this on the agenda for this week. I just need a little bit of time. So would that be permissible?
You know, Wayne, I hear you, but I'm just tired of kicking things down the road. I mean, seems like a good idea that we're saving money. Maybe there's a way to save more money, but you know, we just keep yanking, not replacing people.
Down the road, Randy, I think it's asking for one more week.
I don't know.
And I agree with Wayne. I personally would like to have one more week just to.
I don't personally need a week. If everybody's this consensus, I'm good with it then.
This does not include the machine operator. This is basic, just consolidating, eliminating that one job for the retirement.
Correct.
And this $71,000 reduction is included in the current proposed budget?
Yes.
Well, I'll break the tie. I'm going to agree with these gentlemen because I would ask the same courtesy in the future for any decision. So I'll say bring it back next week. Thank you. That's 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Misunderstood.
All right.
About that.
Changes to sewer fund. Dan DeVito, welcome back.
I'm waiting for my partner here.
Don't worry. I'm here. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Here, Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer, Dan DeVito, Division Director of Environmental Management, to talk about changes to the sewer fund. The sewer fund has required cash reserves and rate increases for years to achieve a balanced budget. Unfortunately, cash reserves are no longer available, creating a need for a general fund appropriation. Cash reserves were around $200,000 at the end of June 2018 and are anticipated to be around a negative $2 million for the end of 2019. Sewer infrastructure is an essential element of the county economy, health, and safety. Maintaining permits and infrastructure has become increasingly expensive with nutrient load reductions and plant upgrades that are required by law. The reliability of infrastructure and capacity is a driving force for the county's capacity to grow the tax base. The general fund appropriations to the sewer fund will serve 2 purposes. 1, it will support regulatory requirements for the public sewer system. And 2, it will restore cash reserves. I'm going to hand it over to Dan here to talk about some of the changes that have been going on with the operations to try to get the sewer fund in a better position.
Okay, thank you. Well, I mean, I think you've all heard a lot of gloom and doom when it comes to the numbers of when you look at the sewer fund, and I think that the natural question is, okay, what are you going to do about it? And that's what we hope we can answer with what we have proposed to do and what we are doing. Some of this is we already are instituting and we're implementing those policies changes and doing it right now. Some of them will come in the future. The first thing that we have done is that we've taken all our old equipment and the equipment that we were nursing along that was just obviously not going to do anything, that sometimes we would use it on site but would never go off site with it, and we put it all on GovDeals and we get rid of it. It currently, the last time I looked, and again, it changes because as we sell things, that money goes up. The last time I looked, it was over $40,000 that we've been able to take out of equipment and move it into some cash where we can then put it back in and help to alleviate some of the financial stress that we're experiencing. The next thing that we've done is that I think we've talked a little bit about this before when we talked about our reorganizational plan. I mean, we went into our inventory department, our inventory building, actually cleaned it out, and some of that stuff was actually contributing to the $40,000 that we've sold, because some of that was not just equipment, but it was excess inventory or things that we had in our inventory building that we weren't going to use anymore because we've upgraded facilities and it's just old stuff that we didn't use, but it was valuable to somebody else. So we were able to put that on eGov and help to sell that. And what we've done by cleaning everything out and instituting an inventory procedure and policy is that we've been able to reduce the costs that our guys are going out on a daily basis and like maybe running to Lowe's and buying something when we have it on the shelf. Or we can then take advantage of a lot of things where if we know that we're going to use something over and over and over again, let's buy it wholesale, let's stock it and help to reduce the costs that we're actually paying for it. Those things we're doing right now. What we're doing in terms of positions, and this is the key part, is that through attrition, and I want to say that over and over again, through attrition, we are doing this all through attrition. We're going to eliminate, as we come up and as people retire, as positions open up, we've had a couple of positions recently open up because of promotions. So it's not just retirements of people leaving, it's people moving up in the system in our department, and as they move up, the openings that they create by that move up, we're really looking very hard at, and some of those we are not going to replace. So that's going to, again, go back to that. We're going to take our employees and we're going to ask them to do more than they have done in the past. And I have every confidence that our employees are that caliber of employees, that they're going to step up to the plate and do what they have to do. We're going to consider, and this one's a little bit harder, that's why it says consider, to reassign positions to county staff. What that means is that instead of, if we have an opening that comes up in collections, and we have maybe an operator in our operations department that maybe is of the equal grade and it would create a lateral move. Instead of advertising and filling that position, we can just make that lateral move. That's what we're talking about when we talk about reassignment. There may also be, for example, a position of equal value in another department in the county where that person can just do a lateral transfer into the other department. And when they do that, then we will see a savings and we won't fill that position again. Scale in plant upgrades to provide more capacity at less cost. Obviously, we're engaged right now in a very aggressive program to identify I&I and to try to eliminate as much I&I as possible so that we can reduce the amount of flow going into our plants, increasing the capacity that's available. What that does for us is it allows us to look at all those mandated requirements. When a plant or a pump station reaches a certain level, we are mandated by the state to upgrade that plant. So if we can do things like that to help scale down our plans and provide more priorities where we end up spending our resources, I think that will help to reduce costs also. Improve collection methods for outstanding accounts. We have instituted a policy where that we carried a significant amount of money every year about accounts that were unpaid, that people just didn't pay. And we've instituted a policy with Sarah's department and the Help with Budget and Finance. We've instituted policies where these people are in a program where we warn them, we give them proper notice, and when it becomes delinquent to a certain degree, then those properties are actually action taken. And I think what we've done because of that is that now what we've done is we've sent a message that you need to pay your bill, and if you don't, there's going to be some ramifications sooner or later. We'll work with you, we'll do whatever we need to do, but sooner or later, you've got to pay the bill. So what we've done by that, and that significant amount that we've carried over year after year has been reduced by probably, I think the last time I looked at it was about a third. And we expect that to continue to go down as we do a more aggressive collection. Reduce capital equipment expenditures this year by $95,000. We had $95,000 budgeted in our CIP account to go to heavy equipment. We were able to reduce that amount primarily because of that selling off those equipment, those older pieces of equipment, and taking some of that money and putting it back in and investing it in our equipment instead of taking it out of the CIP. So that $95,000 represents a actual budget transfer. So that's going to happen for sure. What we're looking at here is over, again, it's over several years, and it's over 3 years because of the attrition, because of the different times that people are retiring, and because of those changes that happen over time. We are representing that the first year savings would be in fiscal 2020 would be $464,000. Second year savings would be additional $200,000, and in the third year would be $400,000.
Third or after.
Or third or after, correct. It's what we refer to as future, as we
Yes.
develop this.
Yep.
What that does is that it is a real savings to our department and to our division of $1.1 million.
A recurring savings, which is very important for the health of the fund. So these are some great changes that can be made. We look forward to them. They are going to take time to work through, and they are going to take commissioner support.
Again, this is very aggressive, and it was going to present a lot of challenges for us operationally, but again, I think we're up for it. And I think it's the least that we can do to do our part. If you guys are doing your part to provide the funding that's necessary to get us through this next 2 or 3 years, I think it's incumbent upon us to do our part.
And so real quickly, you do have a few attachments to this ARF. The first one being the 2018 sewer rate model output. And so just to draw your attention to line 6, miscellaneous revenue. If you look at line 6, there obviously in this projection was some speculation that there would be increased miscellaneous revenues. In looking at this, it was about 4% for the first year, but thereafter the increases year over year even went up to about 26%. So that speculation did not prove to be accurate, did not come to fruition, so we need to make up for that now. In addition, in looking at this spreadsheet in front of you, even with those revenue projections, a general fund contribution was still determined to be necessary during this time. So I think that's very important to understand as well. The next attachment that you have shows the cash balance history of the fund. In 2010, 11, and 12, you do see an incline there. It's important to know that a general fund appropriation was provided to the fund during those years. After that time, you see it to start to decrease pretty steadily. And then in 2019, we do project a negative $2 million. So having said that, this is a very serious matter for the county. We are certainly, evidenced by what Dan went over right now, committed to working through some of these challenges, and we look for your support to do so. And before we conclude, I would like to have a motion for the budget adjustment that's required for the $95,000 reduction for capital equipment, if you can.
As you know, I went over the budget, and I just want to put it out there. Thank you for this future 1.1 million savings. Currently, we're approximately at about a $3 million annual deficit.
That's correct.
And so that does scare me, having an annual deficit of $3 million. I know we're going to be moving operational funds over there. I think we have to do that at this point to make sure that we can cover this, even though we're going to have taxpayers in the county that are not receiving any type of sewer benefit, but are going to be paying into the system. So I'm glad we're making an aggressive push to get this reduced. Last thing, one thing I want to also mention with this $3 million annual deficit, Is it in 2020, there's about 1.5 that's coming off of the budget?
That's correct, because of
a
the
bond?
96A bond, yes.
So really
In
what we're.
21, I'm sorry.
2021.
Yes.
So really, when we're looking at that, we're at a $1.5 million deficit, and taking this 1.1, we're down to about $300,000 annual deficit, which is exciting, even though that's 2+ years away, or two fiscal years. So I just want to say thank you.
And I want to say thank you for pointing that out, because, I mean, we don't want to be the bearers of all bad news and everything, and you just pointed out the bright light in the future. And this program implemented, and if we do our part, you guys do your part, we can put this program, we can put this sewer fund on solid ground with a positive future for all the taxpayers, for all the ratepayers, and for our employees also.
Our goal is to have it self-supported, and that's what we're working
Yeah,
towards.
we got to get that $300,000.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Sorry.
I just had on line 5 there, uncollectible bad debt allowance.
That's just an allowance for accounts that are past due and uncollectible. It's, just general percentage, yeah.
Okay.
And can I have a motion for the budget adjustment, if you don't mind?
I'll make a motion.
Hey, you beat me to it. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm losing
I
my
second
voice
it.
anyway, so thank you.
I thought you wanted my job. I guess you wanted.
Not every, there's a budget cut. Get rid of a commissioner. Thank you very much. All right, I think I heard a motion down this way.
In a second.
And a second. Any more discussion? Sarah, all in favor, say aye.
No, sir.
Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Look, I'm trying to speed this along for you, I think.
I'm tracking time right now, too.
Looking forward to that
Okay.
recess.
Our 520 agenda item is amount forgiven to the town of Williamsport. Sarah, welcome back.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Many discussions have occurred related to the forgiveness of the $161,000 owed by the town of Williamsport and the effect of that decision on current and future sewer rates. A review of possible remedies has been conducted to hold the ratepayers harmless of this event. The county did sell a property, Conicajig Elementary, in January of 2018 for $500,000. These funds realized from the sale were not budgeted and had a positive impact on the bottom line for that year. So at the end of 2018, the county moved these funds over to capital reserves for one-time costs. The Office of Budget and Finance is proposing to move these funds in the amount of $161,030 from reserves generated from the sale of that property to the sewer fund so that no ratepayer or taxpayer is held responsible or is adversely affected by the circumstance. And today I'd ask you if you would approve that transfer for me.
Commissioners, comments, questions? There's one comment I'd like to make.
Sure.
I'm going to support this, but I have a caveat and hope I could get everybody to agree. There seems to be some questions whether certain businesses, this wasn't for the whole town of Williamsport residents to share in this cost on this debt. I'd like to see if we can determine which some of the businesses, one business had 20 EDUs that's not confirmed whether they paid or not. I'll support this, but I'd like to see if we can recoup the taxpayers' money by checking with those businesses who may or may not have paid to confirm payment on those EDUs. And that would be my only suggestion to show that we've gone every length to recover the money for the taxpayers. So, easy one. Okay with that? Simply us sending letters to those businesses or researching.
But I thought we'd already done all of that.
Now, I've asked, I've never got an answer. We have no payment into the water sewer department from any.
So we're in a bit of a
I thought we reached out to see who and what and took care of that.
Can I explain this, please, Dan? So at the end of the day, what comes in is treated by our plant, Washington County's plant, is a pipe that is from the system of Williamsport. So we while we don't measure each EDU, we should know through permits when it's subscribed. We don't have the data to tell when a new permit or EDU is granted by the town. We didn't in the past. We are working to get toward that end. Certainly with permits, we can and do measure flow on a monthly basis and do charge on a monthly basis to the town. We will gladly take the board's direction to seek additional information for any
That's my
EDUs.
request. Additional information to see if anything's never been collected, or that's all I ask.
We will do the best we can, yes.
Is any more discussion?
No, I'm fine with that. I think I'm satisfied that going forward, we have a plan in place where once a year, we're not going to wait for the town of Williamsport to come to us. We're going to go to them if need be. And that didn't happen for about 8 years. So I think there's some negligence on the county's part in the past, not the current staff and administration, but that's not going to happen again. And I feel confident in saying that. And I think as recently as last week that an update was given on that status. So.
Okay, fine.
Right.
Any more discussion? If
Yeah,
not,
just to clarify,
go ahead.
we have checks and balances in place now because there should have never, in the past, never been a permit issued if there was unpaid EDUs, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
So that won't happen anymore.
No.
And including excise tax, correct?
For excise tax we collect, that is correct, yes.
Okay. Any more comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve the transfer of $161,030 from capital reserve to the sewer fund.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
President Klein, Commissioners, we will seek to return within 30 days, approximately 30 days, with whatever information we can
We're
find.
going the extra effort to see if we can recoup that money.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
5:30 agenda item. FY20 budget, all funds. Sarah, welcome back.
Thank you.
again.
Wait. Or maybe I have it in here, but I don't.
Fine.
Sarah can get started while I pass this information out to you.
I would like to point out to you, Commissioners, off the bat, that under fiscal impact, the operating funds, it has been marked in your books. I had an incorrect number here related to the inmate welfare fund. So the correct number for total operating funds is $298,352,420. And your books should be marked, but for the record, I wanted to make sure I stated that correction. So a summary of cost-saving measures, revenues, and expenditures for the 2020 budget is provided in the attachments. I won't be going over these attachments in detail today, but they are there for your review and for the public. For public safety and economic vitality, essential services must be funded. To provide education, fire, EMS, and sewer, among other services, the FY 2020 base budget was reduced by $7.8 million, while revenues were increased by roughly the same amount. The cost savings will pay for sewer regulatory expenses, while increased revenue will pay for education, fire, and EMS in 2020 and in future years. Total operating funds are $298,352,420. Capital improvement fund budget is $55,819,000.
So we've been through the budget, and as you can see, the majority of this afternoon spent trying to narrow costs down. I just want to go through this fairly quickly with you. I know you've had a long day and you have a budget hearing coming up, so I'll make this as quick as possible. But throughout the budget season, hundreds of hours have been spent and millions of dollars potentially have been saved, all to do what is listed here in the services in the color sheet that I gave you, and that is across the 5 business lines that we have economic development, infrastructure, and public safety. Really, very quickly, economic development won a MEDO award, GDP growth highest in Maryland, as recently reported. Education, $2 million over FY19, additional $4 million in capital, up to $15 million. County investment in new schools. State and local funding combined, $286 million in 1 year to education. Human services, organization funds, both the museum today and the Commission on Aging are now in the budget. Infrastructure, capital budget investments, $55 million. Public safety provide for 29 new firefighters and $1 million in additional emergency medical services for this year. So that's what we are trying to do additionally over and above last year. The themes for that: raise service and lower cost. We're trying to do more with less. With that, maintain bond rating and economic stability. If we don't show that our revenues and our expenses are somewhat square, then our bond rating can be diminished. We have later this week a meeting with 3 of the bond rating agencies, Stitch, Moody, and Standard & Poor's. We want to show them how solid we continue to be, and that will only help our both our economic development and our ability to borrow funds for additional services. Maintain or improve the service lines and reduce the overhead in positions. So on the second page of this ARF, again, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but sound financial planning pays dividends with bond ratings and economic development. So what we have done, and what's important to know, is we have not simply asked for additional revenue. We have asked ourselves to do more with less. Full 5-year operating budget has been presented. No additional positions are recommended to you in 2020. In fact, we are reducing positions by at least 5, I would say, at this point. There will be no addition of positions. From what we've received in January, approximately $10 million in requests have been removed from the proposed budgets. Formal travel requests have been adopted. Hiring forms have been adopted. Capital improvement projects have been eliminated or slowed. CIP savings from existing projects will be used rather than take from the general fund, so taxpayer dollars will be not used where CIP savings from former projects will be used. Accounting measures will be implemented for emergency services as well as additional expenditures. Economic development has been fully engaged in private investment. Susan and her office have done an excellent job establishing relationships and developing further relationships with the city of Hagerstown and the state of Maryland to further improve the economy, and our feedback on that is excellent. Opportunities for efficiency are expected in every department. Some instances, this is not just talk, but instances, LED lighting at the airport bridge will save hundreds of thousands of dollars. Grading at the landfill has already saved, even with the rain we've had, in reduction of leachate. Public-private partnerships, which includes the Making Connections, which has received a MEDO award, has served us very well. The Clean County Initiative, where other jurisdictions are spending tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, we are spending hundreds of thousands and receiving excellent feedback on that. As Dan reported earlier, thousands of pounds has been collected rather than going into the streams in the bay. And competitive bids, all the way down to the competitive bids for the sale of surplus merchandise. Just last week I approved for the runway lighting that was collected. We actually put that on Gov Deals for competitive bidding, and I don't know if we've received a final amount for that, but this is old runway lighting that somebody has a use for somewhere. Rather than go in a dumpster, we put it out on the competitive marketplace and found, I believe we'll find tens of thousands of dollars for that. That's just one example in which we've received hundreds of thousands of dollars for competitively bidding the use of surplus material. With what I handed out, I believe the number is 576 vehicles, which has been asked for. That is a complete list of the vehicles. Quite frankly, we haven't had the time yet to go through each vehicle, but we will be going through to find out if we can reduce the number of vehicles. Some I'm sure we can, to meet, while also meeting the policy. That is not to say any employee that needs a vehicle to serve 24/7 is not going to have one. That's not the point. The point is, do we have extras that are being insured and costing us money that can be eliminated? So with that, a final couple things before I wrap up and turn it over to Sarah to finish. Key considerations. This is a complex message, but on the third page of the agenda report, it's important we know that income tax revenue trend is up approximately 2% per year. So revenues are up year to year. So economically, we're doing very well. The fact is that the 6% increase that was projected for the FY18 simply did not occur, and that's what we are attempting to overcome now. Revenues and economic indications have been positive year to year in recent years, also very good. Dropping down to FY 2019 general fund budget, it's important to note that 124 million or 54% of our budget actually goes to other entities. That's not something we intend to reduce. Wages and benefits, 27% distribution to other funds. So when the question comes up reducing the budget, it would largely come out of that wages and benefits. We're trying to do that through attrition so that it is any employee that's here and wants to work here at Washington County and do a good job is here today and tomorrow and stays with us. Finally, in the capital budget reduction, there's a list there I'm not going to go through for you, but Sarah has a very high overhead review of the overall 2019 budget, the cuts that were made, and the new beginning budget to move forward with.
Yep, the next attachment that you guys have is just kind of a reconciliation of the process in the 2020 budget. So it's very important to understand that along with our methodology, we did start with last year's budget. That's our starting point, $229.6 million. We did make reductions on our own of $7.8 million. Unfortunately, we've had to face mandates and additional costs of around $15 million. So that is what gets us to our final budget of around $237 million. Which I guess to point out too, the 7.8 million in reductions would be approximately 6% of our flexible budget that we have purview over that's not a mandated cost to us. And in addition, you do have the general fund revenues and expenditure summaries provided. With this ARF, you also have detail related to these summaries in your budget books, as well as detail and summary pages for all of the other funds that will be presented at the public hearing on May 14th.
I have to interject something here. I think it's important for everybody to understand that's either listening or that will see that we, like everybody else, the county is getting legislated into a lot of huge costs. I mean, we're just, for some examples, maintenance of effort, which is fine. We always meet that, and it's like, I think I saw you said $2 million more this year than last year. And then we have a Kerwin report, which is going to raise that bar. And then we have water and sewer, which is legislated against us. Look at what happened in Smithburg. Started at $2 million and went to $7 million. I think that was part of legislation. Minimum wage going to $15 an hour by 2025. Yeah, 2025. Yeah. 2025, that's going to cost, I think court said $30 million for us. So, I mean, we're being, from our legislation in Annapolis, I think it's fair to people know that. It's not just us spending too much money.
Right.
I mean, we're just trying to keep up with it.
And you can see the efforts that we have reduced our budget by almost $8 million.
I'd like to give you one example of that, Commissioners, that the $40 million plan upgrade at Conococheague recently, $40 million, which about half of that was state funded. However, that still leaves about $20 million approximately. Despite some credit trading, which did happen, credit to the prior staff and administrator and staff out at wastewater, Despite that, there was no capacity enhancement for that $20 million. That was not to improve capacity. That wasn't because the county needs more sewer. That was to reduce the nutrient load in the effluent, what goes back into Potomac, which is a wonderful thing, but still it cost $20 million that was not forecast 10 or 15 years ago, likely, just like Smithsburg, the one that you mentioned. We didn't know this until it came up. It is now being proposed only this year. It hasn't even formally been adopted, but it's going to cost us millions of dollars more. So we are trying to stay ahead of these, and that costs a great deal of money. But we're trying to do it as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, I just think it's fair that people understand that, it's not just all up to us. It's put on our laps, and then we have to figure out how to pay for it. So.
Commissioners, any other questions? If not, we'll go to recess to 6 o'clock for our public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just agreement.
Go eat that cupcake.
All right, I think our microphones, are they on? Can you hear us? Okay, thank you. I'm going to reconvene back in open session. Seems to be a little discussion on what we're really supposed to have in our public hearing today, so I'm going to allow the attorney to introduce it because we want to hear your voices, but we want to make sure it's the appropriate venue and public hearing that you're at. So, Mr. Downey, would you introduce?
Sure. Good evening. This is the public hearing that has been duly advertised for water and sewer rates, landfill user fees, and airport charges, rentals, and fees. This is not the general hearing on the county budget. That hearing will be held on May 14th at Kepler Theater at 6 o'clock. So again, the purpose of this hearing is to consider proposed rate and fee increases for the water and sewer rates, landfill user fees, and airport charges, rentals, and fees. We will take public testimony concerning these matters this evening. The procedure is as follows. We'll first have staff introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. After everyone who will speak has done so, the hearing will close. The commissioners may then discuss the issue and take any action that they deem appropriate, including adoption or rejection of the proposed rates, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. Ms. Greaves?
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. We're here today for the public hearing for modification of charges, rentals, and fees at the Hagerstown Regional Airport. The Board of County Commissioners will conduct a public hearing to permit any member of the public to appear and testify concerning the proposed increase in current charges, rentals, and fees at the Hagerstown Regional Airport. The new schedule of rates and charges, if adopted, shall become effective July 1, 2019. An approximately 4% increase in T-hanger rental charges is necessary to maintain compliance with fair market value grant assurance required by the FAA, as well as aging facilities and operations. Approximately $20,580 in revenue will be generated from the proposed increase in T-hanger rental charges, and you do have attached the proposed schedule of rates and charges for 2020.
Any member of the public who would like to testify concerning the airport charges, rentals, and fees, please come forward. Anyone concerning the airport charges?
Commissioners, seeing none, we can move to adopt or wait.
Why don't we go through the remainder of the
Okay.
things, explain where we are.
All right, very good. All right, Sarah, you're back up.
Landfill user fees.
Good evening, Commissioners. Opening up the public hearing for the proposed establishment and modification to certain landfill user fees for FY 2020. The Board of County Commissioners will conduct a public hearing to permit any member of the public to appear and testify concerning the proposed establishment and modification of certain landfill user fees for FY 2020. The proposed fee schedule as presented is requested as one facet of the overall proposal to help address the projected FY 2020 Solid Waste Department operational budget shortfall. The proposed rates more closely reflect the current and projected cost of landfill and recycling operations and are also in line with landfill user rates at other facilities in the region. Based on the proposed fee schedule, revenue will increase by approximately $226,000. And as an attachment, you do have the proposed changes to the fee schedule for FY 2020.
Thank you. Anyone here to testify regarding the proposed landfill user fees?
Okay, seeing none. Next up, water sewer.
Good evening. Public hearing for the proposed modification of water and sewer rates for FY 2020. Board of County Commissioners will conduct a public hearing to permit any member of the public to appear and testify concerning the proposed modification of water and sewer rates. Water and sewer revenue requirements show that an increase in water and sewer revenue is necessary to facilitate the Department of Water Quality's long-range financial plans. The presented rate schedule for FY 2020 is based on this requirement. Approximately $413,000 in revenue would be generated from the proposed sewer rates and $24,000 in revenue for the proposed water rates. And attached, you do have the summary of the proposed schedule of utility rates for 2020.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to testify concerning the proposed water and sewer rates?
Commissioners?
Seeing none, commissioners can ask any questions that they have. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and conclude the public hearing.
Public hearing. Consensus to conclude. Any other questions for commissioners? There you go.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we may take action tonight or wait. It's your desire.
I thought we were ready to take action on the, and I may be wrong, but are we ready to take action on the increases out at the airport?
I'm comfortable taking action today.
Is that a motion for the airport?
But we're going to do the airport?
You can do them all together individually, whatever you like.
Where's Sarah? I thought you said that we wouldn't be raising water.
Under the current proposed budget, we won't be raising any other fees minus the airport, but that is taking into account that we're going to be increasing property taxes and income taxes under the proposed budget. So that's where we're at, is we've got to look at what we're going to be able to do to meet that amount.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it, moving forward with the airport fee.
Is that a motion for the airport? All right. Any other discussion on the airport? All in favor, say aye.
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 You know, I did have one thing I wanted to mention. I did get a couple complaints, Garrison, about the electric and the T-hangers, the older ones. Maybe you could just check into that. So,
Commissioners, any other actions on the other items? Okay, there we go.
I just want to make one comment, and it not saying we are against raising the sewer fee this year, but in your comments you said that this current proposed, which we're not taking action on, is going to increase about $400,000. Was that correct? And I'd like to make that comment that in 2021 our shortfall is about $300,000. So that is something that in the future a slight increase could make that an actual sustainable fund.
Folks in the audience, there's some misunderstanding, but we'd like to offer you a brief opportunity to make a comment for why you're here. I mean, you showed up in big numbers in your interest, and we don't want to silence your voice, but if there's one or two of you that would want to, based on the advice from the attorney, we could have you do that. We don't want to shut you down. It looks like kind of confused on which hearings were today. You also can come to any of our commissioner comment time during our regular meeting, and May 14th, I believe, is the budget hearing out at HCC. Sir, please introduce yourself and name. Thank you for being so patient with us.
Yeah, thank you, President Klein. I think just to clarify, my name is Carlos Malat, and I am a representative of the Washington County Teachers Association, but I'm also here as a taxpayer and a resident. A lot of your meetings are during the day when a lot of people work, and especially when our teachers and parents are working. That's who you saw the room full of. Parents from our Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee, as well as teachers in the audience. And you know, I think there's also some questions about whether or not the budget is finalized by that May 14th meeting, and we wanted to be sure that we had an opportunity to speak before that. So
I believe we go to, pardon me, and correct me if I'm wrong, we go to the May 14th hearing, we review all the comments, and then we have a vote to finalize it after the 14th. Would that be accurate?
That is accurate.
It would probably be at least at the earliest a week later or longer, it depends. But it's not finalized. We want to hear on May 14th. Okay. Or sooner. Again, you're welcome to come to our citizens participation every week, which will promote our budget in the paper and online. and you're welcome to send us emails with your comments. And then again, May 14th is the budget hearing. We would welcome you all there.
And to address your comment about evening meetings, we have in the schedule now, we are holding more evening meetings just for that sole purpose. We've had lots of different people that work, not just teachers, but anyone who works saying, hey, we can't.
Normally 5 years ago, this meeting would be 9 o'clock in the morning or 10, so.
And I definitely appreciate the move to the evening meetings. And I think before the agenda came out, we thought that this was going to be one of those meetings where we would have a chance to speak. So I'll be done with my comments and I'll be on my way. So first and foremost, Commissioners, Mr. Slocum, President Klein, thank you for being willing to entertain the construction of a county budget with a tax increase, and thank you for agreeing to hold a few evening meetings here at your county offices. Evening meetings are much more conducive to citizen participation in their local government. My name is Carlos Malat, and I've been a resident of Washington County for 5 years. I'm a father to 3 kids in the Washington County public school system, and I want my kids to grow up in a strong county. To me, a strong county is a county with strong public services, ethical leadership and local government, continued economic investment, and a growing and vibrant community. To ensure that we have a strong community, we need to invest. We need to invest not just in our future, but in our present. No one embodies this need more than our children. Many say our children are the future, but I would say they are also our present. Fully funding the WCPS budget is one of the best ways to ensure that our children grow up in a strong county now and into the future. As Mr. Baker has said, providing high-quality education opportunities for our students is essential to maintaining a high quality of life in Washington County. Having a fully funded education budget will ensure that our students continue to receive these high-quality opportunities through the expansion of valuable pre-K programs, the hiring of much-needed support personnel positions, additional English learner teachers, the increase in substitute pay, and the hiring of more counselors and social workers to address the ongoing social and emotional needs of all of our students. As Frederick Douglass once said, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Please fully fund our schools as well as fund our EMS, firefighters, and the elderly through Commission on the Aging so that we can all enjoy a strong, vibrant, and prosperous county and the high quality of life in Washington County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to summarize things? Thank you. Thank you. Do we have your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Becky Higgins-Airy, and I'm a resident in Pennsylvania, but I've worked as a teacher in Washington County for 24 years. I have middle school, high school, and I have lead teacher experience. And I'm going to share my statement via an example. Right now I teach at North High as an 11th grade English teacher. And anyone who teaches in our county sees the growing ELL population, that is our students who have English as a second language. When we talk about money and funding the budget, first of all, I always want to say we'd love to have a little bit more. And I have to say the urgency comes from when I work with my ELL students. My workload is very full. We're asked to differentiate if anyone understands what that really looks like when you have a class full of English students and ones that don't speak any English or they're at a very low level. It's very complicated. We don't have the resources to support these students. And the resources come in the form of people who are going to help these students a little extra than my class. We don't really have a robust program to help these students learn English. It is not for me to judge or give a personal opinion about where students come from, but they're here, they're mine, and I intend to educate them. If we do not fund a budget fully or a little bit more, what we have are students who come here not only wanting an education, but they want to learn the language so that when they graduate, they actually can go to college, they can actually become a more viable part of the economy. If they graduate not knowing English and not knowing skills, they don't become the well-rounded citizen that we would like them to be when they're going to be here in Washington County, Maryland. So I'm speaking on their behalf as well as folding that into please fund the budget and consider a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we close up, is there anyone else who would like to add a comment? Please come forward. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robbie Burton. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Eastern Elementary School. First off, I just want to say thank you for entertaining comments tonight. It's nice to feel like we have a voice and that we have government officials that are willing to listen and to hear what we have to say. I appreciate that greatly. I teach government.
Very nice of you to comment. Thank you.
I wanted to especially say that I teach government every year and talk about making a difference and how we can do that and have kids write legislators and try to realize that they can be a voice in the community and that they have a voice and that the freedom of speech is a beautiful thing. I didn't prepare anything, so I'm just going to keep this short and sweet. We have a lot of needs in the elementary setting. I teach at a Title I school where we have a very diverse population. Some of the kids come in and don't have as many needs, but many of them have academic needs, of course, where they need a little extra support. And over the years, the almost 10 years I've been teaching, I've seen that support get cut almost in half at my school with the support staff that she had mentioned coming in and working with these kids on a small setting. And it's very important that they have that support so that they can grow up to be members that contribute to our society in a positive way. Many of them have a lot of mental needs. There are a lot of children that need that counselor, that need that social worker. And at my school, we share a social worker with another school, and it's very challenging. The counselor is often overtaxed, and she tries her best. But there are many days where we have what I would call an emergency or somebody that really needs support. And there's so many. They have to pick and choose who they're going to see that day. We really need support staff for their emotional needs as well in the school. Class sizes, for me, I've seen them large, I've seen them small. I've had up to almost 30 kids in the last 2 years in my classroom. And I've also had it as low as 17 kids. And I can tell you, when there's 17 kids in a classroom, you can do a lot more for those kids and give them the emotional support they need, which many of the kids coming from this diverse setting need, but also you can give them the academic support they need. When you're looking at a class of almost 30, you're reacting. It's not very proactive. And I'd really like to see a fully funded budget that takes that into consideration. I know that on the Washington County Public School site, it says that class sizes, they try in Title I schools to keep it around, I think it was like 21 or something like that. And that's not always very realistic as far as what we're able to do. So I'm asking that you fully fund the budget and give as much as you can to invest in the future. Because one thing that all of the kids I've seen over my 8 years teaching have had, regardless of their need or what they bring into the classroom academically, they all have hopes and dreams. They all want to contribute to the society. And I think we owe it to them to give them a very fair chance to grow up in a society and a community where we embrace them and we want them to stay and to contribute and be members of our society that can give back. Even if they're very limited in what they can do, they still have a dream. I had one student who just wanted to work at Walmart and help people. And you know what? For him, that was probably a big dream for where he was coming from, but he still just wanted to give back and be a member. So I hope that we can try to give them every opportunity to succeed that we can. So thank you for listening. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we close out, is there anybody else who'd like to comment? Name and address, please. We know you.
My name is Jeff Farr. I'm a resident of Washington County and in my last year of teaching here. And I'll talk to you on the 14th, but I was hoping one of the orange shirts would show up here because you need to understand those were parents and community members who focus on the needs of our special interest and special education and the kids that we are not meeting the needs for with the current budget. And I'm pleading with you to change the paradigm of funding the least amount you gotta, which is what maintenance of effort is, and get the resources so that we can meet in pre-K, kindergarten, grades 1 and 2, and be more effective in interventions there, because the first 8 years determine the next 60. I teach students who are in their mid to late teens, and we're trying to do interventions there. And I'm telling you on camera that I am violating laws every single day in my classroom because I cannot meet the needs mandated by the 501s and by the IEPs, and that means this child needs these supports. And I can't do it, and I have class sizes of 5 to 10. So when we say we need bodies, we need bodies. We could teach the way we used to. I could have a coal stove in the middle of my room, we could have slates and chalk, and we could go ahead. But that's not going to meet the needs of today's students. It's a different environment, and it requires different approaches. And if it means a bigger pie, then we're grateful for the shot of the bigger pie. But these people who showed up in orange shirts are, I'm the professional, but they're the experts when it comes to their children, and I would hope you take the time to listen to them, because they're the ones that can tell you why and what we need. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. All right. Anyone else before we close out? Name and address, please.
Sally Poole, and I'm a paraprofessional. Have been for 20-some years. I just recently, after...
Address, please. I'm sorry.
Pardon?
Your address. Pardon me for interrupting.
My address. My home address?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, 93 Child Crest Drive, Boonesboro. I'm in Boonesboro, resident. And so I have been a resident all of my life of Washington County. I have been at the elementary school level for the last 3 years, high school level before that. For 16 years, I was in charge of the student service learning piece at Boonesboro High. I worked with students to know that they got back into their communities and served their communities. And I feel as though I had a stellar kind of program going there, and helping kids to understand how to give back to their communities. And when I made the transition to the elementary school, I decided I just wanted something different to do. My eyes were wide open to the poverty in our community, and these services that we do not have, especially on the elementary school level. I'm seeing most of our paraprofessional positions are now 6.5 hours instead of 7 hours. That leaves at least a huge amount of time at the beginning and ending of days without supervision of kids going to and from buses especially. And a lot of paraprofessionals deciding that they're going to go beyond their 6.5 hours and stay over and help to get those kids safely to buses without pay. And the pay isn't the thing, it's the safety of the kids. And kids being able to know that they are cared about and cared for. But if something would happen to those professional parapros during that time period, we wouldn't have coverage for that too. So, you know, it's really hard for me to understand that, well, it's not really hard, but we have cut the pieces of the pie in our budget so many times that now they're cutting into taking away the hours for paraprofessionals. And we are the extra bodies in the classrooms, and we do help kids to, you know, with their teachers. So I beg you to fully fund our budget and give a little extra help us to understand how to help these kids. It's getting more difficult each year. This year is an overwhelming year for our board to understand how to help kids. With their emotional needs, their other needs beyond school even. And education is one of those beautiful things that helps our kids to understand how to go on in life and have those hopes and dreams. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to come forward? Name and address, please. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joharia Singer. I'm a resident of Frederick County, but I've taught in Washington County for 16 years. 5 of those years I was a resident in Hagerstown. First of all, thank you again for listening to us and having an opportunity this evening. It really means a lot to us. I've been working since 6:30 this morning, and so I'm looking forward to having dinner after this. I have, as my career as a teacher for 16 years, prior to that, I was a social worker for 8 years, as well as a police officer for a few years. I have taught high school, middle school, and now I'm in elementary school. And I just want to share with you my experience, lickety-split, so that you understand my perspective. Now that I'm in elementary school, I see the entire circle. Children born, getting the least amount of help when they're in the first 5 years of their life, trickling into elementary school, middle school, high school that doesn't meet their needs, and then they become a menace to society, and it's just this horrible cycle. And what I'm seeing in Washington County the last 5 years is these children are coming into our classrooms not getting the needs met the first 5 years. I have 5 and 6-year-olds who can't speak, and that's very disconcerting because we know it's a health crisis that we're having in Washington County with the birth rates being what they are and children being born of higher and higher needs. Now, Dr. Boyd Michael has begun this pre-K program, and I've had the pleasure of teaching it the last year. And I have to say that we have made so much progress having those kids in the school earlier, away from whatever the crisis is at home, or giving them the needs that they desperately need in that 5th year of their life. And I know that the budget's increasing because of the elementary pre-K program, but I'm telling you firsthand, it works. And my kindergartners this year, having been at pre-K last year, are exponentially better prepared academically, but the soft skills, understanding how what they do impacts other people. And this is the greatest gift that Washington County can give itself and all of its residents by funding this program so that we can continue to get kids into school earlier. It's not academic. We really do a lot of play work with them, as well as the academics, which is obvious. All of my preschool kids know how to sign the alphabet. They understand how their relationships work with other people, and that is really what's going to save our society. So even though I'm not a resident, I am fully committed and enmeshed here, and it would really mean a lot to me if we could pursue this, get the funding so that we can have these children sooner and have a greater impact way sooner in their life and get all of their needs met, because the best thing we can do is grow these kids up to be, as my colleague here said, contributing members of our society. So just thank you again. I really appreciate you listening tonight. Thank you
for your words. All right, one last time before we close, would someone else like to speak? Name and address, please.
Denise Neer, and I live in Williamsport, Maryland. I had no intention of saying anything today, but as that gentleman said, all the people here in orange shirts are parents, and they left because they didn't think we were going to have the opportunity to say anything. And since you're giving that opportunity, first of all, thank you for that. And second of all, I just thought it would be unfortunate if none of the parents did say anything. My daughter, Harper Neer, is 4 years old. She will attend Williamsport schools, but I also have an 11-year-old daughter named Kinsey Sullivan who does attend Williamsport Elementary School. She's a 5th grader. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, you may be, but when your child is diagnosed with autism and you start going down the road to Kennedy Krieger and places like that, all of the people who know what they're talking about tell us that we need to relocate because Washington County doesn't have what our kids need. I was born and raised in Washington County. I went through Williamsport Elementary School all the way through the high school. This is our home. This is where our family is. This is where we want to raise our family. Washington County is a great place to be. Washington County public schools have phenomenal staff. When we were told that from here forward would be a nightmare in terms of advocating, not understanding that, I thought that that meant that the teachers and the therapists that were going to be provided to us by Washington County were going to be the nightmare, and they're not. They're wonderful. I can't say enough about the staff. They love our kids like their own, but they don't have the resources that they need for our kids, and that is heartbreaking. I know teachers who have autistic children in their classes who don't have the help that they need in their classes, and as a result, on a daily basis, either the autistic child gets all the attention and the other students don't, or the other students get all the attention and the autistic child is left behind. Either way, our children are receiving a disservice. And the autistic children in those classes don't qualify, I don't know if that's the right term, to be in the autistic programs. So the teachers who have these children that they can't really help, they also can't be in that program because they're not severe enough. So my daughter Harper, for instance, will be diploma bound. And I want her to go to Washington County schools. I love Washington County, I love Williamsport, and I love the staff that is there. And we just need the resources to be there too, because like I said, this is our home, and our kids and our staff in Washington County deserve much more than low effort. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else before we close out? Okay. Please, sir, come forward, name and address.
My name is Jay Neer. I have been a resident of Washington County for the first 41 years of my life. My wife and I currently live here, but we currently reside in Berkeley County, West Virginia. That was my daughter-in-law you just heard speak. So I'm actually here on behalf of my granddaughter, Harper, because right now she can't be here for herself. But 4 years ago, I had the privilege of meeting a special angel, and her name was Harper. Shortly after her second birthday, she was diagnosed with autism, which was a foreign word to everybody in our family. Since she goes to school and has gone to school the last year or so in Frederick, Maryland, she has thrived. The environment down there that they provide has helped her to develop in ways that we couldn't see or foresee happening. We need those kinds of resources here. We need your help. Our kids need your help. The future of many kids in Washington County depend on the decisions that you folks make at these meetings and in the upcoming votes. These kids are fighters, and we need politicians, and we need commissioners that are fighters as well. They can't do it for themselves, and their very future depend on the decisions that you folks in leadership are making. Funding comprehensive programs and programs that currently exist elsewhere, but they aren't available here. I need you to look for it. We need you to find it. We need our young people and our kids and grandkids to have a hope and a future. And sometimes they're dealt a deck of cards that was of no, obviously, fault of their own, and they need a little step up. The window of opportunity for our children is small and difficult to navigate. But with community leaders that truly care, we believe they can get assistance getting through these tough waters. But the time to act is now. In the future, when you look back on your political accomplishments, what will it look like? Will the record show that you really cared for your constituents and for those that really needed your help, or will it look like something else? Harper needs your help today, and she needs help with resourcing the schools in these areas. So many other children need the same help. This community needs your help. Please step up for our kids and our future of our community and our county, so that when we have a chance to look back and see, Harper will be able to understand that the positive impact and the actions that you guys made when it comes to these voting things are what provided an opportunity for her to look back and say they really did make a difference. Thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you, sir. Anyone else? All right, folks, seeing no more, we want to thank you for your patience and understanding and the comments about allowing you to speak. With that, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
There a second? There's a second. Any other discussion? All in favor to adjourn, say aye. Aye. Aye.